Good Monday morning. Here we are in our 50th and Capitol Studios in Omaha. I'm Matt McMaster, joined today by Mr. Jimmy Allen.
That's me.
As our very good friend, Mr. Gary Sharp, is probably sleeping.
He's probably just now going to bed.
Very tight. Or could be still out partying. I don't know. I don't know what Gary is doing as your Omaha Mavericks are going to
Sioux Falls. You can only do so much.
Going to the
What
NCAA
time does the Chili's close?
Chili's or Applebee's? Where are we at here?
It's Sioux Falls, probably both.
Yeah?
I think he was asking for preference.
For preference.
I think I'm more of a Chili's guy. Listen,
Chili's?
I'm fine with the party.
Jimmy Chavez?
I really think you're choosing here between mustard and ketchup. So
Yeah.
if you put a gun to my head, I guess Chili's. I don't know, but Applebee's did have that quesadilla burger that was a banger. And
my wife goes to it, Applebee's.
I just see her Fiesta lime chicken. She likes that's good too. But yeah, we'll do Chili's, Matt. In reality, if it's past 8 o'clock, I'll do bed.
Yeah.
Let me know how Chili's is.
I'm just laughing so hard just because of how
concerned and tired you were during that entire answer.
But
hey, we're here. We're here on Monday.
I need you to wake up. It's a Monday morning.
It's a Monday morning, Jimmy.
We'll
It's
get
a
going.
championship.
That's why
Monday
you're
morning.
here, Jimmy. You'll get me going. I also haven't seen you in a while.
I missed you, bud.
a lot. Did anything happen this weekend in sports?
There was
Teams that won, and teams that were supposed to lose ended up losing. And unfortunately, one of those.
Iowa showed up and played basketball.
Hey, shout out to them.
It's Monday morning here in Omaha. Nebraska basketball,
City of Champions,
is not going to at least an important postseason. We'll get into that later into the show. Creighton basketball looked pretty good. Looked really good, if we're being honest, against Butler over the weekend. They'll be going to the NCAA tournament, playing the Big East tournament later this week. We'll get into that. We've seen some things shake up in the NFL. We'll touch on that as we go along. Hey.
There he is. Where'd you go?
I don't know.
There.
I just randomly lost Wi-Fi. Anybody else? Just me? Just me?
They didn't pay them.
We will be talking a little bit of Husker football
on the show as well as Matt Rule will be talking on Tuesday, so we'll get into that and just kind of things that we want to discuss when the head coach of Nebraska football takes the podium in just it'll probably be about 29 hours from now, and that'll be interesting to see.
Is it a weird time for him to be talking?
A Tuesday in March at 11:30.
Yeah, that's a little random, right? I mean, listen, we got to break down Matt drills, right? I mean, we got to talk about Matt drills.
I think he knows the local media needs a little bit of context. I'll go talk.
That's the thing.
Ask you some questions.
Matt,
ask you some stories.
Matt knows how to feed the media. If we're being honest, he knows how
What do you guys want to talk about?
how to give content, like you said, like he knows how to just. He's got a lot on his mind.
Talk about my quarterback's haircut.
He's
Just
just
let
always talk.
his defensive line coach get back up there and give us some more. Hey, what's your names?
Terry Braden was a absolute ball of energy.
Sean,
we will continue to talk about that throughout the show and just other things happening, shaking and moving. College. Hey, we're in March, man.
College basketball is at its peak right now.
Cooper Flagg is going to be a superstar in the NBA for years and years to come. We'll get into that and just kind of where we sit heading into Selection Sunday.
Listen, I love you some Cooper Flagg. I think Johnny Groom might be the guy, man. Like,
We will talk about.
He's so good.
We have to talk about the National Player of the Year conversation.
It's a real one.
I think that we have been in this.
We've kind of just assumed it's been flagged for the last couple of weeks, and honestly, maybe we came into the year assuming it was flagged.
Johnny Broom's awesome. That Alabama
Hello.
Auburn game was absolutely incredible. We'll talk about that.
Very
as well.
similar atmospheres to the Nebraska Iowa game. Almost
comparable.
lockstep,
They were practically the same. I felt like I was in Auburn when I was in Pinnacle Bank Arena yesterday at 1:30.
I don't mean to
Drink that much?
I don't mean to steal your show here, but like,
Go ahead.
how much different does the National Player of the Year conversation look if Liam McNeely is healthy all year at UConn? Because I think that shakes up that discussion a whole lot.
I don't think this is a good convo. I don't think he wins it.
I don't either. But I think he enters his name in that conversation.
I agree. And after seeing him play against Creighton at Creighton and seeing that 38-point game, like that guy is legitimate. And by the way, we got to talk about that Mount Verde high school team last year with Derek Queen, Cooper Flagg, Liam McNeely.
Yeah.
One of the greatest high school basketball.
Probably had
teams
some
of all time.
NIL going on at that school if I had to
You think?
Had to make an
I
educated
think
guess.
all those guys were born in the same area, Jimmy, and they all ended up going to Mount Verde. That's
something
what
in the
I think
water out there,
happened.
Mount Verde.
I think that their parents were all friends and they all grew up together and they played on the same AAU and teams and baseball teams and
Probably
football
never met each
teams
other before the tip of this season, but neither here nor there.
And then on top of that, yes, we will talk about Nebraska basketball at some point. But most importantly, and we're going to lead off the show with this because it is the best story in Nebraska sports right now,
Ooh,
by
agree.
far.
Good
It
take.
is something that I think we have seen coming for the last couple of months. We thought it was a possibility. It was something that we hoped would happen. We talked about it as if we kind of knew in the back of our heads that it wouldn't happen.
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Like, this team has never happened before, and in this month of basketball is designed for the teams that have been in the deep waters and been able to swim there before. Yeah, that's why Tom Izzo has been able to have the career he's had, is because he knows how to navigate March.
Absolutely, and so University of Nebraska Omaha going to the NCAA tournament, winners of the Summit League. Thanks for cashing that ticket, by the way.
There you go.
That was the easiest bet of my life, plus 400 to win the Summit League.
Wow, preseason?
No.
Oh, okay.
On Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen,
I was told that they were plus 400. I go, you're telling me that the regular season champs who win 13-3 in the Summit League are plus 400 to win the tournament? Take me to Warhorse right now.
They did such a good job of, and this is something that is 100% coaching and effort, running shooters off their spots all weekend. And they did it against everybody. They kept South Dakota in a box. They did it all night long last night to St. Thomas. And that's something in those two losses to both of those schools that they weren't able to do.
Well, you look at the South Dakota game, right? And they had played South Dakota early in the year twice. And in both of those games, they had gotten up early. They were clearly the better team. They were dominating them, and then South Dakota started making buckets. And when South Dakota starts making buckets, it's a problem. And you saw that in the South Dakota-North Dakota State game. When they start making buckets, they can start implementing that press.
Yeah.
That press is nasty. It is dangerous. They know exactly where on the court to force you, whether it be the left corner, the right corner, W there. And another beautiful thing about South Dakota's press is that even if they can't get the steal, they still pressure you into taking incredibly quick possessions, right? Because they're forcing you up the court. You see the bucket right there. You kind of smoke a layup or maybe you pass it out. You get to a quick shot, and they kind of speed up the game on you, and they get you out of your momentum. They get you out of your rhythm, and that's how they kind of come back. Omaha, and granted, South Dakota couldn't make any buckets, but Omaha did an incredible job of just playing defense in general.
The triple-digit score will
we'll
assert that. But, like, I don't think we can have this conversation without talking about what Markel Sutton did last night.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, Summit League Player of the Year and all that, but, like, he asserted himself and really was the focal point of everything that they did well last night. I mean, he grabbed 18 boards, scored 22 points. Like, J.J. White quietly scored 29 because of what Markel Sutton was doing.
Sure. And Markel Sutton, it's an incredible conversation to have about him because Chris Crutchfield, and I'll be honest with you. So Chris Crutchfield came on here in January. Was it January or was it December, Jimmy? I don't know. What was it December?
What are you talking about?
When Chris Crutchfield interviewed here for the first time, was it December or January when he came on the show?
That feels like a January thing.
I think it's
because you started in December pretty late. I don't think we had Crutch on.
He came on, and I didn't know too much about the team. Like I was watching the team, I was following them. Yeah, there you go. And you're looking through the early part of the season.
What, did he hit a pothole already?
I hit a pothole this morning.
They're coming.
Yeah. I was actually
they're coming.
Very concerned. Go ahead and I asked him about Markel Sutton. Hey, what do you think about this guy? You know, he came in with you at the same time. Community college. You guys started together here. He's now developed into one of your best players. Like, what is your outlook on him? And to hear him talk about just the journey that he's taken, not only just as a basketball player from a basketball development perspective, but just a body perspective.
Oh, yeah,
the guy
you can see it.
Has grown into a grown man. I mean, he is just more physical, more athletic, just faster, quicker. Just he is. You look at him play, and I think Cam Thomas is kind of similar in this regard, and I think that he'll take another step hopefully next year, where he's a Power 5 guy, man. You just look at him, you're like, that guy could be playing at the top levels of basketball anywhere in the country, and he's just a dominant force.
And I love Darren Hanson, so this is no shade at Darren Hanson, but I think that's been the biggest and noticeable difference for me over the last 3 years is that the guys on Omaha's starting lineup look like they've been in a college weightlifting program.
Is a great way of putting it.
And Markel Sutton, maybe more than any, because I think when he got here, he was listed at 6'8", like 195. And he's legit 220 now. Yeah, that is a legit, to your point, power 4, power 6 type of forward. And I'm a little worried about him when he gets into March Madness because I think he's been asked to do some things that a 6'8", 220 guy could do, but can't really do against legit 7-footers and things like that. And obviously, Omaha probably going to be a 16 seed.
Well, let's talk about it.
I don't know, Tony.
Let's talk about it because I'm looking at some brackets here, and I've talked to some friends of mine who love putting that stuff together.
Shout out friends.
They could be a 15. Okay, they could be a 15,
which doesn't really change the conversation a whole lot.
I do think it does. I think it changes.
I'm talking about for the type of bodies they're going to see.
Sure.
Yeah,
fair enough. Yeah. In that regard, yeah.
But if because if you're expecting Markel Sutton to go out and listen, he plays bigger than he is, which says a lot about a 6'8", 220 guy. But that's just a different type of athlete, and it's going to be interesting to see how he holds up in those situations.
You're absolutely right in the regard that if they play teams that just have really bigger bodies, especially if they play a team like Florida, it is going to be really difficult, and you're going to expect a lot from Isaac Anaconda, and Josh Strite is going to have to play some of his best basketball of his entire life if we're just talking about them winning a tournament game. It's going to be an interesting selection Sunday because they're going to go ahead. You're talking about a Omaha Maverick team, 13-3 in the regular season. They end up winning the Summit League Conference Championship. By the way, did it in convincing fashion too. Like they're
in the regular season
or in the tournament.
Okay,
they absolutely kicked the crap out of.
Yeah, they were by far the best team.
The best team in that Summit League tournament. And that definitely does mean something from at least NCAA Selection Sunday, committee picking who's going to be who.
It does, but the one thing that's going to stand against them is the name that's on the patch that's on their chest. And it is the Summit League. Point. It is a one-bid league. And right, wrong, or indifferent, the committee usually holds that against teams.
Oh, yeah. There'll be a 15 or 16. If they're a 16, I think the 1 seeds this NCAA tournament go around, and I think this is kind of just the consensus of everybody. They're just so good. I very, very highly doubt that any 16 is really going to have a shot at beating a 1 just because the level of basketball being played by your Auburns, your Dukes, your Houstons, and your Floridas are just at such a high level right now that, I mean, you can make the argument that you're going to have 3 of them in the Final Four. If you told me that you have 3 1 seeds in your Final Four, I would not blink at it at all. If someone said to me, I have 4 1 seeds in my Final Four, I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't blink. I know it's weird. I know it doesn't happen a lot, but that's how good these 1 seeds are.
The only reason that I push back on that a little bit is I think you could probably make the argument these might be the 4 best 1 seeds and the 4 best 2 seeds of all time.
Great point. Great point.
The top 8, this is going to be a very, very heavy. I know we love Cinderellas and we say this every year, but it feels like if we're not talking about at least all 8 of the top 4 seeds being in the Sweet 16, I'm gonna be amazed.
I do think there is a drop off between Alabama, Michigan State, Wisconsin in terms of the 2 seeds.
Okay.
I do think and Tennessee. I do think that Alabama is by far the best 2 seed. And then once you kind of drop to, I think you drop to Tennessee, and then I think you drop again to Wisconsin and Michigan State. I think that those 2 teams, Wisconsin and Michigan State, for me at least, are kind of on the same playing field or on the same plane. I think that Omaha, if they are a 15, playing Wisconsin or Michigan State.
Wisconsin's going to be a 2 seed?
That's where it is a bracket matrix. If you look
I don't think Wisconsin's going to be
a 2 seed. If you look at bracket matrix
20th
right now,
in the net rank?
Oh, no, they're So on bracket matrix, they lost Penn State.
Yeah,
they got
I was going to say
it's going to be Alabama, Tennessee, Michigan State, and St. John's is right now what bracket matrix has for your 2 seed. Once again, regardless of that convo, I think that if Omaha is a 15, they will have a much better shot winning in the NCAA tournament than they are at 1. I think there is a drop for me from the 1 seeds to the 2 seeds, plus Alabama. I think Alabama might as well just be the 5th 1 seed at this point.
Sure.
Especially with what they did against Auburn. Sears looked great. If Grant Nelson is hitting that corner 3 consistently, and if just Alabama, you know how they play basketball. They're run and gun. They might as well be the Mike D'Antoni 7 seconds or less offense.
Sure.
If they're just
Nice
making
call.
shots.
Still couldn't beat the Spurs.
Yep.
Do you remember that,
You
Jimmy?
always got to rub that in. You always
Couldn't
got to
beat the
get your shot in.
Spurs. Foot inserted ass 4 times.
You remember when Steve Nash got thrown in that board?
That's a him problem.
That was a fun thing.
You still got to win the games.
Are you a Tiago Splitter or Boris Diaw guy? I feel like you have to pick your favorite Spurs.
We're going to
role
pick
player.
with David Robinson if we're going to go with big men playing the 5.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
I was going to say
Fair
that's
enough.
not.
I was talking more about role players, regardless of the fact.
You're talking about a 5 that's just a body.
Uh,
Excellent passers. I'd go with Boris because he could shoot.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Plus, he's French. He's cool.
How funny would it be if they played Michigan State in the first round of the tournament? Frankie Fiddler.
I was going to say
and the
there's obviously a
Spartans.
ton of, and I think that's the one thing like that hasn't been talked about with this team, right? Is like a lot of people wondered offensively what this was going to look like
down and out.
with a lot
Down.
of people thought they were down now, but like there was
They were
just so many
8th.
questions about who's going to be your shooters,
Yeah.
and how do you score the basketball if Frankie Fiddler wasn't there, and
Mm-hmm.
like obviously it's worked out for both squads, which is usually not the case when you
No.
not that Frankie left on bad terms or anything, but it's just like
Oh,
when you have a player
not
of
at
that
all.
caliber choose to leave, it's usually a down year and you win both championships convincingly.
I do think that Frankie leaving definitely, Coach Crutchfield had kind of touched on it. Like it gave everybody kind of the option of step up or step out, right?
Well, and not
Where-
even that. I think it defined roles better for this team.
Yeah,
too.
you know, absolutely. And I think players knew that, all right, and Gary and I have talked about it a little bit with Nebraska basketball, right? Where there are times, and it didn't really happen yesterday, but there were times in the season in a game for Nebraska basketball where the Huskers would just kind of give the ball to Bryce Williams.
Because that's their identity.
Because that's their identity. That's what they would do. And Gary, talked about it, how that was kind of what Omaha did at times last year, where it would be hey, we're 16 seconds in the shot clock here. We're just going to give it to Frankie, because Frankie's our offense and Frankie's going to go to the bucket, and that's how we're going to cultivate points here. But
to kind of make it full circle,
sure,
it's kind of what happened with Creighton with Pop Isaacs too.
Yeah,
and
it's a good point.
You really had Jemiah Neal, who has the ability to handle the ball like a 2, but was being asked to play a 3 because of his defensive prowess. Pop Isaacs goes down. It goes from kind of a round-ish peg into a very round peg into a round hole with Jemiah Neal.
That's a great point. Well, I think too, with just Omaha in general, it defined roles, but then most importantly, and this is just basketball, right? Those guys stepped up into those roles and took those roles in stride. And also too, it's very easy to see when this team plays basketball, when the Mavs play basketball, they like each other. They enjoy playing with one another, with how they are in the huddle, with how active they are in the huddle, talking to each other, communicating with
you
one
heard it
another.
after the game last night, and it's easy to hear it after a win, obviously,
Sure.
in a celebratory manner. But like Gary was struggling to get guys to come over to talk to him in the post game because of how much they were enjoying the moment together, and not like they were
Sure, they weren't mad at him.
Well, no, I'm
Okay.
not sure. But listen, I don't want to give anybody false information here, so I can't confirm that. But like you could hear the adulation in their voice, like just from the guys behind them coming up and patting them on the back, or I believe JJ got pulled out of his chair at one point while he was talking to Gary by his teammates, and it's just listen, it's easy to see that stuff in victories, right? We kind of saw last year with Keisei Tominaga and Rink Mast and those guys.
Yeah,
they look like they enjoyed playing with each other, but when we talk about needing to enjoy your role on your team, it goes a long, long way.
I will never forget. I've talked about it a couple times on the show when Josh Streit smoked a layup, and a timeout was called not too long after that, and Jayshon Glover and Tony Osborne sprinted over to him because he still had his hands in his head, right? Like hands on his head, like still really, really mad about him smoking a layup. The fact that they ran over to him, picked up his head, we're like, we're good, we're fine. We need you to recover. We need you to play good basketball. Like, it is a really good team. It is a team that makes sense. It is a team that is cohesive. It is a team that has roles. It is a team that has a floor general. It's got a superstar.
Yeah.
It's got length. It's got athleticism. It has shooting. It's got big guys who can just hammer the paint and play really good defense, and it's got a good coach who loves his guys, who enjoys his team.
And it feels like with Crutch specifically, he's done a good job of helping guys identify who they are too. And I think that was a real struggle for him. And because there was a lot of people specifically on that team and in that building that when Darren Hansen left, like they felt some type of way because everybody had a really, really great connection with it. And it was hard.
Sure.
It was hard not to appreciate him as a person. And I think that was his biggest hurdle to overcome, as for Crutchfield's biggest hurdle to overcome in his first 2 seasons, just because no, you weren't replacing a guy that's coming off winning a championship or had this long history of success or whatever, but you had a guy that was instrumental in building the program up to where it was at that point. And he wanted to do it a different way, but it was a proven way, and that helped. And he got guys to buy in early. And there was some discussion about what Frankie Fiddler was going to be and how long he could be there. And I think that took up a little bit too much of his time. And I'm not saying the loss of a Frankie Fiddler is ever going to be a positive because that's obviously a very high level basketball player. But I think that freed him up to be a little more creative coaching wise. And I think that goes a long way.
I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. I would love to ask him that question, honestly, and have that discussion with him because yes, it does open you up to be more creative. At the same time, it is a little bit more easier to just say, hey, we got Frankie, and Frankie's really good, and we're going to give him the ball in these spots, and he's going to take these shots. And
sometimes players like that dictate your time so much and how much you have to scheme for because of their offensive skill set.
Yeah.
That when you take that out of the equation, that's when the coaching starts, right?
I think it's a you're right in that regard. It definitely is where the coaching starts, and it might be easier from an offensive perspective to just do that. There definitely is the risk reward, though, of when you lose that guy.
Sure.
You can't do that anymore. And the risk is, we might be terrible on offense, and it might be a struggle to get a bucket every time down the floor. The reward is, hey, these guys are going to grow into roles. These guys are going to become better basketball players. These guys are going to develop into player because they just have the ball more. They have more opportunities. They have more shots. And they're going to become better and we'll be better as a team. And that's exactly what's happened.
Well, I think you can talk about the residual effect in Lincoln, right? Like you take Keisei Tominaga out of the conversation for a guy that could bail you out and get you some shots. Well, then what do you have?
Sure.
You got Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if Bryce Williams isn't giving you Bryce Williams numbers like he didn't over the last 7 games? You're missing the Big Ten tournament.
We saw that happen exactly yesterday. And we'll get into it at some point during the show. Hey, Captain's got a really good comment on the YouTube chat. Captain will read it. We'll get to that. That's it's kind of the truth. We have a really good show for you today. We have the Omaha Mavericks made the NCAA tournament. They won the Summit League Conference Championship. I'm really excited to see Gary Sharp here in the studio tomorrow, out today. Jimmy Allen with me. We'll have a good time. But
I'm excited to see you, Jimmy.
I'm excited to see Gary and do his victory lap tomorrow because that's going to be absolutely
Is he actually
awesome.
Be here?
He'll be here tomorrow.
He'll be here.
He'll be stumbling in tomorrow.
Really?
We got the NCAA tournament selection Sunday. It's just 6 days away from what is going to be an incredibly captivating tournament this year, in my opinion. We'll get into the reasons why I think that will be. Creighton basketball. Look, we talked about this 5-game stretch and then playing the schedule that they have at the end, right? Not playing that many good teams to end the season, how that was really important for them building momentum heading into the Big East tourney. They did exactly that on Saturday when they played Butler.
Is winning important?
Oh, winning is pretty important. We'll talk about a team who didn't win a whole lot this season, just in general, with Nebraska basketball. On top of that, some things happening in the NFL. We're shaking and moving here on 1620 The Zone on this Monday. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt. Pure class from Jimmy Allen here.
Way to see Jimmy Chavez start picking up Jake Janicek, just spin him around the room.
We're going to start doing a little
dancing?
hot dancing.
Throw out my back.
For those on the stream, Jake is...
You and I have to worry about those things.
True.
Jake parroting behind Jimmy today.
We are training him.
We are training him. The young man, the young man is being trained for the board. So he will.
Are you older than him? I think I'm older. Yeah,
he's older. Than him.
I know. That was the joke.
Yeah,
that was the joke. That was the.
The idea is if I end up in the protocol, Jake's ready to step in there.
Yeah.
Younger, a lot more mobile.
What time do you think you're getting fired today? Is that? I mean, we reading between the tea leaves.
9:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the Toyota.
No, they don't do that here.
Bring your 40,
no.
bring your 40s of Old English for Jimmy Chavez to 5011.
10:05. 10:05. But it's gonna be 80 degrees today, so we'll be all right.
Toyota call it to the pen is what might happen today. If,
there you go.
Jimmy Chavez ends up breaking a nail whilst pressing buttons. And,
just remember, I'm behind you.
We'll bring in the closer from Santa Cecilia, Dominican Republic here as we're on the
Jake.
ones and twos.
I didn't know Jake was from there.
Hey,
that?
Is March? Are we getting to the point where like March is the best month of sports? Like what other months of sports?
Well, it's October.
Still got to go with October.
Yeah, it's October for a couple reasons, right? It's obviously postseason baseball, but it's also rivalry week in college football.
Conference play gets your meat and potatoes.
What is that? Isn't rivalry
chill in the
week
air
in November in college football?
Well, you got like Texas, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
You got third Saturday in October.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me,
leaves get all pretty if you're into that.
I like March for a couple of reasons. First off, I think that March just in general kind of just brings hope. The spring brings hope of the summer in general, just period in a story. But just
there's that light at the end of the tunnel.
There is the light
literally
at the end of the tunnel. Like no, seriously, like the weather is getting. I put on one singular sweater today, and I was like, "That's good enough." And the warmth that brought to my heart was absolutely incredible.
First of all, that sweater you put on today is a banger.
Do you like to
show that off?
That is the Temple University Owl Club.
Shout out John Chaney.
Matt Rule is very proud of you right now.
I don't know what the Temple University Owl Club is. I don't know.
But you're in it.
But I'm not in it.
No,
I'm not in it at all. What? I just have the sweater.
But it's a conversation.
Kind of feels like a thrift pickup.
What do you? Of course, it's a thrift pickup.
Nothing wrong with that.
You think I'm walking?
That wasn't a judgment. It was just a question.
You think Target and Walmart are just selling Owl Club?
Once upon a time,
sweaters?
Maybe. Probably best market if they're not.
Yeah.
It would be very smart.
There's a return.
I'll take March over anything. I love the NHL. I enjoy the NBA. I will take Selection Sunday, the conference tournaments, the chilling on your couch with about 4 sandwiches and a couple of Miller Lights.
Speaking of sandwiches, I just have a quick update that nobody listening cares about.
Cool.
We got to wait till 8 a.m.
That's okay.
That's fine.
Just let everybody know.
I know you were excited.
Transparency.
I thought that you ordering sandwiches on DoorDash at 6:30 was an absolute just power.
People work the third shift.
Yeah.
And diabolical.
Hey, I appreciate the guys from the night shift punched in this morning from the after hours comment section. Appreciate you, boys.
Love March. Love this March. This March is going to be great. Can
we save this for October? I want this replayed at 6 a.m. on October 10th and be for when Matt's going. Man, I just love October. It's my favorite month because I say that because that's what I do. I do the same thing.
Is October the best month of sports, guys? Is this incredible?
Yes.
I mean, we have everything going on. We have all 4 sports. We have college football.
You know what? I'm gonna make a poll because I want to know what the people think.
March or October? October and March.
That's
what
all.
Is the better month for sports?
Even
October
if you like August or just between the better.
I'm just
2
such
months.
a big tournament guy.
No, listen. I'm not harping on you because I do the same thing because I get excited about what's happening in front of us, and there's a ton to be happy about around it. And okay, we're gonna talk about Nebraska later, so I'll save. I'll save that conversation
because
I have a this is a tease in radio, folks. I have a legit question about if Nebraska actually overachieved this season. I'm excited to get your thoughts.
Okay. Well, I can't wait because it's all relative and I love it. Let's talk college basketball. We are into championship week here with the conference tournaments happening.
I'm so ready to get on a plane.
You are going to the Big East tournament, which, in my opinion, there are probably about 6 to 7 events that I think of immediately that I'm like,
you're obviously
I want to go
a young gunslinger.
Yeah.
Sheriff in town.
That I haven't been to.
What's the coolest event you've been to?
Ooh. I went to the
Did you go to the game yesterday?
2016 U.S. Open at Erin Hills in Wisconsin.
Very cool.
On the final day. It was Brooks Koepka's first ever major won. It was the first time he ever won a major. That was a darn cool event. I've been to Game 5 of the 2016 World Series in Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
The only World Series game they've won since 1945.
Yep.
That was awesome. Gary was at that game, funny enough, as well. I've been
You guys have beers together?
No, we didn't.
He was a wee lad.
I was not going to tell how many. I'm not going to tell people.
We
how
really
old I
need
was
the
in
sarcastic font for this show today.
2016.
But he was a wee lad. You
Yeah.
couldn't give him beer. That's a lie.
I
Cubs
went
World
to
Series, you can give him beer.
The 2010 Stanley Cup, Game 5, Stanley Cup final.
Okay.
Flyers, Hawks. And then I think my favorite one, though, by far, which kind of ties into this convo, is in Milwaukee about 2 or 3 years ago. I went to the NCAA tournament, round of 64, round of 32. Yale played Purdue. Iowa State ended up playing LSU. Wisconsin played Colgate. I saw Wisconsin as a 3 seed lose to Iowa State in the Pfizer Forum. As someone who hates the Badgers,
We hate it, don't we?
that was awesome. That was so cool.
You ever been to a Mania?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Gotta go. So
I've been
that
to
is
3.
one. You've been to 3 WrestleManias.
I went to 20.
I knew this.
I went to 20.
Yeah, that's a good
in
that's
New
a
York.
good
Consumed my first alcoholic beverage in Times Square.
Many have.
I went to 21 and I went to 32.
So, talking about March here, like this tournament, I think, is going to be one of the best tournaments in recent memory. And
I
I'm
agree.
going to
I'm
make
all in
that
with you.
statement because it is. You want to call it top heavy? You can call it top heavy. That's fine. I call it just best teams in the country. I just call it. I don't want to say upset proof because there's no such thing as being upset proof. But like,
Kind of feels like it though, right?
a little bit. Like I just think that the 1 seeds are just too damn good to where. And like, no offense to you, Jimmy, or anything, or your.
It could be either one of us.
Your Jay. That's a good point. No offense to you, Jimmy Chavez. I have to mention that. I really don't think like teams like Kansas or teams like Memphis or teams like UConn or
You're not
Mississippi
offending me.
State or Illinois. Granted, Illinois might be out of the conversation because they've had a really good last 10 days. So maybe throw them out of that.
I think I'm all out on the Big Ten.
But
I was never in.
we have to break that down in a second.
Yeah.
But like, I just don't know how like the 8 seeds and 7 seeds and 9 seeds and especially the 10 and 11 seeds are just not that good this year. They just straight up, and it doesn't have a lot to do. It has a lot to do with the 1 seeds being damn good and the 1 seeds having a ton of depth, and they're just being superstars up and down all of those Alabama, Tennessees, Auburns, Dukes, Houston, Floridas, and Michigan State and St. John's roster. But at the same time, you know, the 7, 8, 9, 10s, and 11s just aren't that good this year. And there have just been disappointing. There's just been disappointing play from those teams kind of in that group, in that quad.
Well, and I think it's a couple things on top of that, right? Like, it's not even just how good the 1s, 2s are. Like, you got a couple teams. We talked about it with Omaha, and I want to make sure I get the 3 initials correctly. I can't, SIU Edwardsville.
Yeah.
Nice.
As the
Try calling a game against them.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you guys like to be called? Can I just call you Eddie?
2 teams that have. Listen, we've got a very small field so far, but 2 teams that have never been to the tournament, so you don't know what to expect out of them. And assume that, you know, the lights may be a little bright for those 2 schools. So, yeah, I'm with you, and I think that in a day and age of NIL and the transfer portal and everybody talking about this is going to ruin college basketball or college athletics, kind of feels like it's made it better. Like, listen, we love the first week in March, or the first weekend of March Madness because of all the upsets, but people tune into the Final Four more than the first week for a reason. It's because the best teams are playing.
In my opinion,
Oh, man. You don't want to see St. Peter's in the Final Four?
no, I want it.
Oh, there's lots
No.
of. You need the sarcasm meter on
Yeah.
today because I'm with you. I want to see the good teams.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy my couch.
I think NIL was a really, really. I don't want to say bad. I want to say a really, really bad thing, but there are its positives and negatives and major pros and major cons when it comes to NIL and college football. Okay. There are some people who would go as far to say that NIL ruined college football, that it took a lot of the homegrown uniqueness of college football and turned it into NFL light.
I would say athletic departments and TV revenue did that more than NIL ever did, but that's neither here nor there.
Neither here nor there. That's just kind of, some people look at NIL and they go, man, not a great thing for college football. NIL for college basketball.
Can we talk about that for a quick second?
Go ahead.
Because like, here's my problem with that is all of that money was coming from outside of the university originally. Initially, that was the thought for NIL, right? Collectives, donations, signing for apparel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that is changing college football and getting Nebraska to the Big Ten and Texas A&M to the SEC and Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC is big TV revenue dollars.
Sure.
And all of that was happening before this House versus NCAA lawsuit anyway. So, this feels, there's just that narrative out there that these athletes all want money and we've got to force feed the athlete.
That's what it is.
But the universities are the ones that are clamoring for the almighty dollar. It's not necessarily the kids are getting paid now, but that money's not coming from the schools yet.
That aspect does exist, and I'm not going to say that you're not right, but there definitely is the regard of, and you kind of brought it up, the likability and just the brand and just kind of the visual of it, right? People like college football. People like things the way that they are. It's something that they related to. And when you go ahead and you change a fundamental aspect of something, right? Players getting dollars.
How much does that change after the ball gets kicked off?
I think how
much are you thinking about? Man, that quarterback makes $1 million.
That changes a ton after the ball gets kicked off, because when the ball gets kicked off, a guy who would maybe be on a different team in a different era is now on this team in this era because of the dollars that they are getting paid.
Because Ohio State never got 5 stars previous?
No, but their SMU didn't, and UNLV wasn't able to pay all these guys before. Boise State wasn't able to get those top guys in that frequency that they were to before. That's neither.
Boise State won a Fiesta Bowl.
No, but we're talking about 5 stars, and we're talking about Malachi Starks and the fact that they're able to pay him all that money. There are guys,
that's a little bit of a different conversation, because a lot of things had to happen.
No, I think you and I are on different. We're on different waves right now, because I'm just talking about the acquisition of players and the fact that people look at players and look at the sport different because players make money. That is a thing. You are right in the regard that teams and athletic departments were taking money and all of that stuff beforehand, and that also had
no player ever got paid.
Well, at least not over the
on the books anyway.
Yeah, but regardless,
let me tell you about Rhett Bomar.
I think that NIL money.
You know about Rhett Bomar?
No,
you know that is?
I remember him.
He was a quarterback at Oklahoma that was getting like $7,000 a week to punch in for 15 minutes at a local car lot.
Called one of his games and then he got busted and didn't see him again.
Yeah.
NIL's been great for college basketball. I think just in general, this era of just being able to like it's more competitive now. It's become a little bit more top heavy, but there are so many good players and things have become more competitive.
Yeah.
And yes, you
like the one and done situation?
I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. I absolutely hate one and dones. I never thought it was good, not only just for the player, but I didn't think it was good for the NBA, and I didn't think it was good for college basketball. I thought that.
You're in the residual. So you think they should be able to go from high school to college or high school to the pros if they choose to?
I thought that. I honestly think that's better for the NBA if they go from high school right to the NBA. I think it's more of it's cooler. I think.
Well, with the advent of the G League too, it kind of feels like the one and done situation is now no longer relevant for that reason.
That and just the money that. So here's where you're getting into it, right?
Yeah.
The NIL is great because now you have guys like Hunter Dickinson, like AJ Storr, bad examples because, Storr hasn't played well, but you kind of go down
Hunter Dickinson?
Hunter Dickinson's pretty good.
No,
he played well against
It's overrated. He played okay.
He
had one good game.
They won that game because of him.
He had one good game.
He was awesome against
Everyone was just
They won one game because of him, and he gets $1.5 million.
Yeah. And they're going to be a 7 seed after they've been lower than a 4 in 25 years.
What are you guys ranked in the top 25 right now?
I don't know. Do top 25 things matter in basketball?
No,
I always say the only thing that matters is you're number 1 the first Monday in April, which won't be them.
That's well.
No, it won't.
Well,
no, it won't. They're not getting out of the first weekend.
Still got Bill
I don't
Self.
know.
Still
I don't
got
think
Bill
you
Self.
can confidently
They're
say
not getting
that.
out
You
the first
never
weekend.
know. They probably
I
won't.
think Jimmy's trying to do a little reverse psychology.
What if
No, they're not getting out of the first weekend.
Is this Kansas team unlikable to the point where it's like even if they do get to the Sweet 16, you're not gonna cheer up and down for it, or are you?
Well, I'm not going to cheer up and down for anybody, but I'll be like, good for them. That's nice. This is
you
good.
wear your Kansas stuff every day. I feel like you'd
not
be
every day. I just wore this today because I like a red
home.
quarter. I wore a quarter zip for you.
It looks beautiful.
You were Mr. Quarter Zip, so I was like, you know
Quarter
what? Matt was
shows up dressed like a homeless person the day I'm here. You ever talking about
no, but he was talking the other day about how he loves a good quarter zip, and I thought, you know what? That is a great take. On Monday, I'm going to wear a quarter zip.
I love.
I was going to wear a Nebraska one, but you know
We
how
just
that
totally
went
derailed
yesterday.
this.
Totally.
Matt's
But
ever
at-
trying to talk
but
sports. We're like,
but
let's
at the
talk
same,
fashion.
no. Let me tell you something right now. I love this, by the way.
Okay.
I feel bad because the one day I wear a goddamn sweater is the day that Jimmy Chavez was trying to honor me by wearing a quarter zip.
Yeah. Now, in your defense, I told you that sweater is a banger.
It is a banger.
So
The
if you
problem
weren't,
is the neck though was a little off. Like it's one of those vintage ones. They're actually shout out Dan in the comments because Dan is the one who told me where to go.
Dan knows what's up.
Dan
That's
knows
what I
a
was
thing or two
wondering.
about sweaters.
Yeah, he know. That's a good point.
Dan, you and I need to go shopping
it's
together.
loose around the neck, which is a problem. Like it looks a little beat and torn up. I mean, just in general, it looks beat and torn up. It's a great sweater. It's $30. No big deal. Anyway, Temple Owl Club. I don't know what the Owl Club is or what they do, but I wear their sweaters.
I think this is something we need to look up.
Yeah.
What's the Owl Club?
By the way, just kind of close off my sport point. NIL's awesome for basketball just because older guys get to stay in college basketball more often. You get to relate to them. You get to see them grow. You get to see them develop. They're better at college basketball than younger guys are. The quality of the product is higher. It makes you invest more in the teams, in my opinion, right? When you have a young team, you know that if these guys, hopefully, if they can stick around long enough, that'll get to the point where you can see them grow and develop and win, and it becomes just more rewarding in sports in general. And that's kind of the thing that's ruined. I don't want to say sports are ruined because I'm not that type of guy, but like in general, right? The NBA has had a problem because guys are just shaking and moving, going from team to team to team. And it's hard to like really plant your flag on a team because your team changes so much. I think the same
As
thing
a Dallas Mavericks fan, I can attest to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I think there's a couple of things there, right? And the NBA comparison to NIL in college athletics is a really good one in my opinion because the players have all of the power in the NBA, and that's why load management is a thing. That's why guys are at teams for a cup of coffee until they can go get on a banana boat and then go hang out with their friends. But it brings up like how do you, I'll put in air quotes, how do you fix NIL in the transfer portal? And it kind of feels like you can't, because I don't know how you ever have a bargaining chip on the player side of things, because it is guaranteed to change every 4 years. And is it in the best interest from a fiduciary standpoint for the players to always have a change every year if you want a senior to be representing what would be the CBA of college basketball or college football or whatever, and you need a different representation for each sport? That's a lot of people and a lot of moving parts.
A lot. It's a lot. And it's going to be, and that's, a lot of people get upset about the how football controls everything, how all the decisions we make in terms of conference movements and just alignment and money and just athletic department decisions. And this isn't a Nebraska thing. This is a full country thing where, you know.
Oh, we're solving the country's problems too.
Well, I was like the 4 teams of the Pac-12.
3 hours, man.
the 4 teams of the Pac-12 moved to the Big Ten, not because of softball or baseball or any of the Olympic sports. They moved because of football. And some people get mad at that, and I understand like the concern and the anger over that, but it's just easier kind of to move that.
Doesn't change what it is.
I mean, it's kind of
facts are facts, man.
Yeah. I mean, it just, they move because it's easier to do that way. And like you said, like when you have all this representation from all these different sports, it's just easy way to get a really, really big headache over all of it.
But I mean, we're talking about canceling and forfeiting games because of how difficult rescheduling them would be and getting a team to the coast in that situation. That's not a good
ridiculous
look.
No, it's a terrible look for the Big Ten. And like, you know, it's not as if in that situation specifically, was Northwestern going to be, you know, was going to get their brakes beaten off?
No. Yeah. But you're also taking that experience of going to LA away from that team, and you're taking away those reps from those LA teams as well. And just nothing about that's going to end up positive.
Hey, we have a good show ready up for you in the next 3 hours. We're talking Nebraska basketball. We'll talk Creighton basketball, do a little bit of Husker football. Things are happening in the NFL. Nebraska baseball, it's been a tough start to the year. We'll get into that a little bit. Husker wrestling had a really good performance at the Big Ten Championships, coming in second place. Husker softball is shaking and moving. We'll get into all of that. Hey, we have Evan Bland coming up at 8:30 from the Omaha World Herald, and Jacob Bigelow coming up at 9. Talk to Biggs after that. Just absolutely disappointing performance and result that has Nebraska basketball done for the season. But actually not the case. You'll watch this basketball team play a little bit in the postseason. Fred Hoiberg said yesterday. I don't know what postseason they'll be in exactly, but
make their own.
They'll figure out. You'll watch them, and maybe you do or maybe you don't. Hey, today's lineup is powered by the Rooferys at John Higgins and Weatherguard. Also, don't forget to email to the Equitable Bank inbox. Matt at 1620 The Zone. Equitable Bank. They take banking personally. Hey, don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Hey, if you are a fan of the NFL, today is the day for you. Oh, echo.
What happened?
I had an echo over here.
Oh, I got
I
you.
was looking at.
Are you listening to Gary and Matt on Twitter?
I was listening to Gary and Matt on YouTube. I was trying to
to
look
help
at
the
some
ratings.
things. Trying to help out the ratings.
Mhm.
NFL free agency opens up today. We'll see what happens. If you are
Good luck to your other teams.
Yes,
To your team.
Yes,
Matt,
to everybody. This is happy. This is the first day. This is the first time. This is the only moment all year in the NFL. As a big NFL fan, I will tell you, good luck to your team. Good luck to your team. I hope it works out for you.
Luck doesn't apply to my team. We still have Jerry
side,
Jones.
All right.
How do you think Josh Allen feels today?
Rich.
That guy's got it. I mean,
And in Buffalo, it goes a long way.
Yeah.
He's handsome, and he's got
Doing all right in the dating realm.
he has got a beautiful wife in Haley Steinfeld.
He
Who
threw that
is,
interception to Nate Gary.
hey, do you think he cares? Do you
No.
think he cares? Do you think he's losing sleep at night with his $60 million a year?
Yeah, they're rolling around in money,
Yeah, he's rolling around with Haley Steinfeld and a ton of money. Good for him.
which is actually a lot of germs all of it. Anyway.
I don't think that money's got germs. I think
Yeah.
that is fresh
Print.
printed.
Yeah.
United
That's Jake
States
Janis
dollar.
money.
Yeah. Devontae Adams now a LA Ram. Good for him. Just trotting around. That guy went from it's incredible to see the lives of NFL wide receivers, and we've seen it the last couple of years where they go from absolute studs, future Hall of Famers, you only remember them being on one team to then kind of hopping around a little
Still think
bit.
10 years from now, we're still only going to remember Devontae Adams for one team.
Oh, for sure. But these last couple of years, Randy Moss did it. Julio Jones did it.
Yeah, well, Randy Moss did
DeAndre
it.
Hopkins
he
did
left.
it.
He left Minnesota and then went to the Patriots and had an undefeated run to the Super Bowl.
Well, then Oakland. He went to Oakland, and then he went to the San Francisco 49ers
We don't
after
talk
that.
about that.
He went to San Francisco. He was on that team that nearly won the Super Bowl in the blackout.
I'm a Niners fan.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
You have weird
I'm aware.
teams.
Yeah.
What are your teams?
I'm a fan of the 90s. I'm
okay.
a Yankees
So
fan.
Yankees.
I'm a
Dodgers.
Yankees.
Niners
Damn, I'm
fan.
sorry about Garrett Cole. It sucks.
Yeah. Can I just have a decent Monday, guys? Come on.
You're here.
We're talking about
You're
we're
doing
talking about
radio with
we're
Matt.
talking about the Niners.
It's gonna be
losing the
80
Super Bowl,
degrees.
Gary Cole, come on.
This is your misery. We actually
Yeah.
brought you on here to just replay
thank
the
you.
worst moments of your
Ooh,
sporting
I could
life.
Coming up later, we'll have Lee Caselda talking about how he blew that call against Creighton a couple of years ago.
I think it was the right call.
But you don't call it that.
Wow.
I agree. I agree with both of
Public
those
enemy
sentiments. Yeah.
number one over there.
It was a foul in every sense of the word, but you got to swallow that.
Yeah, it's the Elite Eight. There are no fouls. You can get away with murder.
Not at fouls at the very, very end of the game,
Right.
where it's literally going to be
Just, yeah.
decision-making time.
I don't know if I've ever told this story on air.
Go ahead. I'll give you the floor.
I don't know if I should. Yeah, I probably should. I already said it.
Just don't say the F word. You're good.
We were at the Sweet 16 last year, and I'm not going to say who it was, but one of the officials comes over and he asks, "Hey, what's the score of the Duke game?" And we told him that Duke was losing, and he goes, bleep, and walks away. This is somebody who was officiating a Sweet 16 basketball.
And maybe he was a big fan of Christian
Maybe-
Laettner when he was
wait,
younger.
Are we thinking, though, there are three...
Everybody's thinking what you should be thinking.
There are three ways... No, there are three ways to go
Nope.
about it. There are three ways to go
Sure
about
isn't.
it. Number one, he's a fan of Duke,
He
which would
loves
be
sports.
which would be bad.
Which you're not supposed to
Which
be.
you're not supposed to be. Number two, he's got scratch on the game.
Quite
Which
possible.
is he
Well,
not?
that's illegal.
That is
It's
illegal.
frowned upon.
He
As-
said as tongue-in-cheekly as possible.
As a referee, yeah, that is highly just not.
They advise you not to do
allowed.
that.
Well, not advised. Legality, not allowed.
Well, they
That
advise you
happen.
not to break the
And
law.
the third option is he has a completely free and legal bracket.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what it is. Those are one of those three options.
Darn, us referees have a bracket.
How much money do you
contest.
think he had on the game?
20, $25.
What do you think a unit is for college basketball referee? Like 1 unit per bet, probably what? 25?
Got a comma,
25 a
got
game?
a comma in it somewhere.
Yeah. You really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
We
I
really
don't
need
know.
a referee to weigh in here. I need
I'm sure
I need
none
an
of-
expert.
I'm sure none. Maybe he was Mike Krzyzewski's brother.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe his daughter or son goes to Duke,
Yeah,
and they were,
Mhm.
he's rooting for them to win, regardless.
He really loves his kids, by his reaction. If that's the case, I'll just throw that out there.
My dad was
Take that for what it's
watching a Nebraska football game and was yelling at the TV,
Yeah,
and
he's supporting
he
you.
he looked at me and goes, "I don't need this bleep. All right, I'm already a Bears and Cubs fan. I don't need the Huskers in my life." Is
He has a
exactly what he
point.
told me. Unfortunately for me, that's my reality. Myles Garrett, also the witch hunt of whether or not he's going to be traded. And unfortunately for every pro sports radio town, they can no longer spend 25 minutes talking about should their team trade for Myles Garrett. So unfortunate for them. NFL free agency will happen today. Josh Sweat will probably end up going to the Commanders. That is my pick to click there.
That is going to be a destination.
Oh, yeah.
For people because Jaden Daniels is the real deal.
Isn't it just incredible? And like it also is kind of a college football conversation as well, but just how much one player and one guy at that position can just absolutely change your outlook.
Sure, and I think that's
how you.
I think that's a lot of the reason so many people were excited about Dylan Raiola around here was not just because you're getting the 5-star quarterback, but you're getting everything that came along with him, right? Like in theory, and that hasn't necessarily come to fruition quite yet. I mean, you've gotten some guys to the transfer portal, and I think a lot of the reason that they came here was to play with a 5-star quarterback. Guys like Dane Key have coaching connections.
Yes.
And Isaiah Hunter obviously isn't that case, and I think Dylan Raiola had a little bit to do with that. But if he can blossom this year and get to what he looked like in the Northern Iowa game in Big Ten play, that opens up a lot of opportunities.
I think you have to think, right, when they went to Florida and when they went to Kansas City and they were recruiting Isaiah Mosey and they were recruiting Cortez Mills, and when they went out to Cal and they were recruiting Isaiah Hunter, that it was a part of the pitch was, hey, you're a great player. You're awesome. You're a freak. You're athletic. At the same time, look who you're going to have throwing the ball to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to have any sort of quarterback concerns. You're not going to have to worry of what's this competition going to be like? What is this offense going to look like? No, like we have Dana Holgorsen. We're going to throw the ball. We have this 5-star guy. Come and play and up your draft stock and like get yourself drafted and get yourself to the next level because you have this guy with an elite arm who's going to be able, hopefully, to feather it to you.
I do think how much is Dana going to run the ball, throw the ball combination is going to be very surprising to people this year because a lot of people feel like he got kicked out of the Mike Leach tree of coaching because of how much he runs the football.
Yeah.
And I think Nebraska fans are going to be pleasantly surprised about that in his first year fully calling the offense.
When I say though, like Dana's going to throw the football, it's not
because he is.
But it's not because I say it in a way where it's like you're not going to have the air raid here, right? They're not going to throw it 50 times a game.
No.
It's not the combo. But when you have a guy like that who is so tenured in just passing, and is so creative, you're going to throw the balls in more creative ways that are going to give people more opportunities to catch them in advantageous positions.
Well, and I think a lot of that
adds to that.
And I think the reason that specifically in Isaiah Hunter's case that Nebraska was intriguing to him, not only the Dylan Raiola thing, I'm sure he probably got a little bit of cash for his time.
Oh, yeah.
But with his skill set specifically, the motions that Dana Holgorsen likes to run and like designing plays off of those motions, it feels like that's tailored for Jacory Barney and Isaiah Hunter to an umpteenth degree.
1,000,000%. And those kind of short motions, right? You're bringing from the slot, you know, moving a couple of steps, come back out, the orbits. I mean, that's more so out of the backfield than it is from the outside, right? But like those quick, let's get you off the line and get you moving before we go.
And it complements each other so well because not only does Dana do that stuff, but we finally saw them during the Wisconsin game and after the Wisconsin game, throwing the ball downfield to Jacory Barney, letting him try to win in space, which was something like we never saw before that.
I was a big fan of the 6-yard hitches.
Yeah,
from Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayer. And I always like that because it essentially is a run play, right? Like it's a quick throw, like the guys
without necessarily needing perimeter blocking.
Exactly. So those I've always been a fan of that aspect of the offense as well. I said it from the jump. Watching Dana Holgorsen's offense and watching Marcus Satterfield's offense side by side, it was clear that Dana was trying to score. Like he was trying to score points. I don't know if
probably had an idea of how many yards per play he had to.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think there was a whole lot of we got to make sure that we hold on the ball as long as possible. Mentality with Dana.
Well, and I want to talk about that for a second though, because I think that's interesting. Because Marcus Satterfield kind of got crushed for that, but that's something that Matt Rule talked about openly after the first Iowa loss too. So I think a lot of what you're going to see this year is Matt Rule taking his hands off of a lot of things. And I think some people probably have a problem with that, but you don't hire a Dana Holgorsen to micromanage that person.
No, he is the head coach of the offense. Okay. There are essentially 2 teams in Lincoln.
There's essentially 3 teams because Mike Eckler is going to be 100% in charge. Mike Eckler and Phil Snow are going to be 100% in charge of what happens on special teams
too. It's a great point. I think that with Matt Rule, when he first came into town, he didn't say it outright. Okay. but he mentioned Iowa a lot, and he mentioned
Big fan of that
running
head coach. Yeah.
the ball a lot, and he mentioned possession a lot. And it was almost as if, and he didn't say it, but he didn't really need to say it. He was like, "We're going to be Iowa. Like we're going to play football like Iowa. Like that's what we're going to do. We're going to be really, really damn good on defense. We're going to run the ball. We're going to drain the clock. We're going to be a snake. We're going to boa constrictor you. We're going to suck the life out of you, and then we're going to win games 17 to 13.
This is a defensive head coach.
Yeah, and we're going to be 9-3 every damn year. And then, hey, when we get dudes here, we'll go from being Iowa to being Michigan because that is the step. One of the biggest differences between those two programs, Michigan and Iowa, especially the last couple of years, they don't play dissimilar from one another. Like they both love to run the ball. Michigan loves to run the ball. They both play elite defense. The difference is that Michigan has 5-star dudes. They have every year they have multiple first-round draft picks. They have J.J. McCarthy, who is an elite quarterback. Like that is the step up. Michigan is very similar to Iowa, but they have just so much more talent. I think that's what Matt Rule looked at in Iowa. He goes, that's the model. We'll do that model. We'll win that way in the Big Ten. And then hopefully we can get dudes and take that next step up national.
I think there were so many different things that Matt Rule had to adjust to and for that it surprised him in his first year. Like, which makes sense, right? Because from a weather and elements situation, you can't compare Philadelphia, Waco, Texas, and Lincoln, Nebraska, and look at those three things. And go and throw Charlotte, North Carolina into that conversation. And go, you can't know what you don't know until you're in the situation.
Massive.
And I know for the amount of money Matt Rule is getting paid, nobody wants to hear that conversation. But that's a realistic situation. Like you can't understand what a 40-mile-an-hour wind looks like against a Jeff Sims level arm until you see it, because he played in that dome and played in the ACC and had his own turnover problems in that situation. But you don't know what that looks like until you get there.
You're good. I mean, you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
Is a really good way of looking at the Nebraska football program, because they found out and they've made so many changes.
Which, I mean, you go get Dylan Raiola because he's Dylan Raiola, but like you needed a big boy arm for what you wanted to do in November in that stadium.
1,000,000%.
And you can't know that until you're there.
You're right. Hey, we'll go to the lines here. First, head over to old man Doug. Doug, your team's playing the Big East tournament. How do you feel about it?
Honestly, and I love Kalkbrenner and Ashworth. This team is one bad shooting night, and I don't think they've been playing that well lately. Honestly,
I agree.
Yeah. It hasn't been their best work, definitely down the stretch, but they did look better against Butler, I think, as opposed to Seton Hall. Paul.
Yeah, but Butler was kind of a interesting matchup.
Yeah. Anything else though? What do you got for me?
No, I want to congratulate UNO. And
of course,
look at what they did. Probably very, very limited NIL funds.
Very.
And so that Sutton kid, and I honestly haven't watched him much this year.
Sure.
Hard to follow too many teams, but I think he's a couple years away from being a fringe NBA player.
I don't entirely disagree with you, Doug. And so now, because of the new NCAA rules, he's going to have one more year of eligibility. And this season, he's made a lot of money, and you'll see him in the big bright lights next season. So if he has another really good year, I don't know why any team wouldn't want to take a flyer on a guy who's 6'8", 220 pounds, and is that long and athletic.
Yeah, I was looking forward to you. Do I have an echo there?
No, you're good.
No, you're fine.
I was looking forward to you, Matt, arguing with Andrew this morning.
I know. I'm so mad
Give
that he
it
didn't
time.
call in.
Give
Like
it.
if there was a day for him to call in, Doug.
We just had a time change. It's still dark.
Andrew 402-951-1620. Doug, what did you and Connor chum it up about before the Butler game? You guys look like you're having a great time.
Oh, I just saw him there looking lonely, and I was there in plenty of time, as I always am.
You are an early to Creighton type guy, Doug.
Are you going to New York?
Yeah, are you going? We're going to ask that.
No, we're doing a lot of other traveling this year. So,
Yeah,
but my
gotcha.
wife and I loved it. What was it, 2 years ago, or was it last year? No, it was 2 years ago.
Where does it rank in sporting events you've been to? The biggest tournament.
I'd say number 2,
Wow.
behind the
Wow.
95 Orange Bowl.
Okay.
Well, Doug, I was going to offer to buy you dinner while we were out there, but never mind.
It ranks ahead of the Rose.
That's a good take.
The Rose Bowl.
It's overrated.
Before then it was awesome, and it was just, if you remember when Nebraska played there, they were completely overmatched. That may have had something to do with it, but
Matt remembers
that stadium is too horizontal.
He was there.
It's too horizontal. It's poor sightlines. It was right after 9/11. The security lines were ridiculous. I almost missed the game, and the facilities themselves, if you get up and take a leak, you're going to miss at least a quarter. It's horrible. They ran out of beer. I mean, it's just
all the important things went to
Bin
crap,
Laden.
is what you're telling me.
Yeah. But I read Chattel's column, and I'm reading a lot of this, and I'm buying some of it,
Sure.
but I'm not buying all of it. That money is the only thing to blame for where Nebraska basketball is, and I think Fred's getting a free pass. It's in some of the comments he made after at his press conference, and again, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I just saw excerpts, but I don't know. I them playing in this crown or whatever. I don't know if you probably have to.
Probably. I don't know.
I don't think people are going to show up for it if it's in Lincoln. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't. Well, it's not in Lincoln. It's in Vegas. So I mean, are Husker fans really gonna drop a bag to go out there and watch this team play?
I feel.
Thanks for the call, Doug.
Thanks, Doug. I feel confident in saying that program, specifically Nebraska men's basketball, will never get over the hump until they give whoever the head coach is an associate AD for basketball that could focus their time and efforts on improving that program away from what the monster is that is football, because it overshadows it too much, and you need somebody specifically delegated to that program.
We'll talk about it. I don't think an associate AD, but could be a potential general manager. We'll see what happens in that regard.
I think they need both.
Maybe we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in the next segment, because we do have to get to Nebraska basketball. We've kind of been burying the lead a little bit and revving up toward it. Hey, we'll go to Eric. It was a mixed bag in Nebraska sports, but Husker wrestling looked pretty good, right, Eric? Eric, you there? Eric's not there. Eric wanted to talk
Eric, 402-951-1620.
Eric wanted to talk a little wrestling. We'll talk a little wrestling. I mean, they came second in the Big Ten, and Ridge Lovett ended up winning the Big Ten. So good for them. Good for just a weird week in Nebraska sports in general. Basketball loses. Wrestling looked incredible. They came in second. Softball looked good. Baseball looked
Bert Prince and the girls almost took UCLA to the brink, too.
That was a really good outing by them. I mean,
I guess that was still last
week. It was a really
week.
good first half. And we'll see. Nebraska women's basketball, as of right now, I don't know if they fully updated the ESPN bracketology. The last time I looked at it, they were still in the last 4 buys, but they did what they needed to do in the Big Ten tournament. They won 2 games. They'll be ready to go. Hey, we have a really good show lined up for you. We got to talk about Nebraska basketball. We have to talk about Creighton basketball, who's actually going to be playing in the postseason. All right, here we go. Never mind. Screw me going to break, because he has called in. Andrew is here. Andrew,
good morning.
He's ready.
Lay it on me.
Hello.
How are you, bud? Good to talk to you.
Good. What's up?
I'm
Good to talk to you. I feel for you.
Why is that?
I feel for all you Nebraska fans, believing that someday Fred Hoiberg will turn it around, which he won't. And here's something to think about.
Okay.
Will UNO get their first NCAA win before Nebraska?
I don't think so.
No.
If they're a 15 seed, it's not going to happen. But it may not.
Well, don't say never.
I will never say never. You're right. They definitely could happen. It definitely could occur. And they got Tony Osborne, who is just primed to be a NCAA one shining moment superstar, in my opinion. So it could happen.
Good point.
So have you changed your view on Hoiberg?
What was my view on Hoiberg? What did I say last week?
You still like him?
I said I was down the middle, Andrew. I said I was right down the middle. I said I don't know. There are arguments on both sides. We spent a whole 2 hours on the radio talking about it. Tune in.
I know, but once again, after watching them flame out like they did, what is Lincoln's love for Hoiberg? I don't get it. Is that
they fell in love with that team a year ago, Andrew? I mean, with what Keisei Tominaga was, and like you got to remember what those crowds looked like a year ago. I understand that, but it's really hard to see the two extremes and see and forget why people loved Fred Hoiberg a year ago and why he's getting the little bit of leash he's still getting this season.
And here's the thing too is, if you think you can't do better than Fred Hoiberg as a coach, you'll never do better. If you think this is as good as it gets, Nebraska fans, then you'll never become a winning program. If you keep on bringing new 5 players in every year and don't form team chemistry, you'll never be a winning program.
See, it's
hard to argue that.
That I don't disagree with. Thanks for the call, Andrew. That was great. I don't disagree with Andrew, and I'm sure that in the next couple of segments we're going to get into that, because there is way more to this than them just losing to Iowa yesterday.
Oh, great.
It is way more than they just lost a game against a bad team, and now they're not going to go to the Big Ten tournament, and they're not going to be in a conference tournament for the first time since 1976. It's more than just that. There is so much deeper into why yesterday happened, why this season happened, the up and down, the roller coaster of it all. There is a lot more under it other than them just not being good enough, because they are not good enough, plain and simple. They just aren't good enough. But there's more to it than that. We're going to get into all of that coming up next. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone.
This basketball season, when your favorite stars score buckets, we're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. To play, you can choose whether a player will go higher or lower on one of their stats like points, assists, rebounds, and more, and they've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. You can create entries with all basketball picks. Remember, pro and college. You can do both. Or mix and match across the other sports. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn $1 into $1,000 just with your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, it's conference tournament week. All right, I'm looking at dudes to do things and make me money because I like money. It buys things, and it pays bills. Download the Underdog app, sign up now using promo code ZONE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on all the fun when you sign up with promo code ZONE. And claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Hey, the tournament is almost here, but you know that because you listen to a sports radio station. And speaking of sports radio stations, this one, 1620 The Zone, is giving you the chance to watch the first round in style with 9 of your friends. Now, friends are sold separately. You're going to have to handle that one on your own. But to win the contest, enter to win the 1620 The Watch Party. Nice. I like that name. And you could get a VIP table at the Prairie Flower Casino's Sky Bar and Grill to watch Friday, March 21st. Games on multiple big screens. Plus, we're throwing in a $400 bar tab to cover your food and drinks. I wonder if you could just take this all for yourself, and you could be the 9 friends. Either way, only one way to find out. Enter now through Sunday, March 16th. That's this Sunday, 1620thezone.com.
Your Dallas Mavericks yesterday almost turned into an AAU team where they had to grab a penny and
Might as well
grab somebody out of the stadium in order for them to play. They got down to
Then
7
they trade
players.
him.
I feel bad for Nico Harrison because
wash machine, a bag of Cheetos.
the Luka trade was bad. Right?
Oh,
it
it?
was an awful trade. At the same time,
Trading under 27-year-old top 5 NBA player was
I enjoyed
a bad
it.
idea.
When it's not my
What
team,
a
good.
concept.
They did though he did have a good idea though with Kyrie, who has now torn his ACL and is out for the year, and pairing him with Anthony Davis, who has hurt himself once again. After, by the way, the whole Anthony
Davis is hurt.
The whole
Who
thing
could
Shocker.
have seen that coming?
Anthony Davis always being injured actually kind of was
I mean,
put to
Mike
bed
Trout
a
is
little
always
bit.
injured. You were wrong.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis is 31. His knees are 56.
But he had been playing a lot of basketball up until he finally got hurt. Like you could have made the argument that maybe his injury days potentially were behind him because he played 76 games last year and played most of the games up into him
for the
getting
first
traded to
time
the
in
Mavericks.
6 seasons.
Oh, for the first time ever, yeah. But the idea was there. It did not execute well. And right now, at this point, we're just kind of doing an over-under of when Nico Harrison gets fired because that is inevitable at this point. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, 66-34 in favor of October, but the results are early. But we had a lot of votes in the first hour, so thanks to our people.
Thanks, Kornacki. That was a phenomenal update.
Yeah.
Hey, the bubble is bubbling. Things
are looking good for me and Jimmy.
I'll tell you this right now. I know that we've kind of, I have stomped on this bubble and said it doesn't really matter because the top seeds of the tournament are really, really good. March is March, but it was a very interesting weekend for the bubble. Vanderbilt losing 2 games in a row after winning 3 games in a row against ranked teams definitely put a bit of a spin, put a wrench in things in terms of how many bids the SEC will get. Georgia has really picked it up. They're up to 80% chance of making the tournament now. And then Oklahoma, and like Porter Mosier was kind of getting to the point of like, man, he might be fired.
It was getting real hot. It was getting
real hot, but a hell of a victory over Texas. So they've now picked it up as well. Picked up a couple of ranked wins. Like that is Porter Mosier was a guy where we were kind of talking about like, it might be like a fall from grace. Like, man, like Loyola, what a magical run. He did such a great job over there. He gets the big lights. He gets the big job. Maybe it's too much for him. He's turned that season around. Oklahoma was 13-0.
Sister Jean was the secret to Loyola's success.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out.
11 SEC teams have 20 wins.
That's crazy.
It's a 37-team league, though. That's going to happen.
I don't care if you got 50 teams. You get 11 teams with 20 wins. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Arkansas still firmly on the bubble. Hey, shout out Mike Woodson, who was basically brought out to pasture.
You didn't need to say basically.
Indiana basically was old yellering him. I mean, they were literally walking him out to the shed and look. I mean, they already did old yeller him essentially, but
you know what to do.
They've turned things around. They now have a 53% shot at making the NCAA tournament, according to ESPN, after basically having a 0% shot. And they beat Purdue and then they beat Ohio State. Those were big wins. Ohio State suffered massively after losing to Indiana this weekend. They're now at 45% here, according to ESPN, to make the tournament.
They're out. Yeah,
and all the way at the bottom of the article, Nebraska men's basketball.
Ooh, they made the article at least.
Do you want to guess what chance they have?
3.
6.
Jake? 13% chance.
I win. Wait, what was your guess?
NCAA
Well, you knew
tournament.
already.
Just like everybody had at the beginning of February. Nebraska out of the Big Ten tournament. Indiana into the Big Ten tournament.
I don't know. I can't believe it's 13%. I don't know what in the heck would have to happen in order for them to make the tournament at this point.
You would need to come out all chalk.
More COVID than taking teams out.
Is there? I don't even want to.
And a meteor.
I don't even want to entertain the idea of what's the path. What can happen? Who needs to win and who needs to lose? And
it's the meteor. That's the only path.
Yeah, meteor.
Like, I
meteor that has COVID.
Can we just claim that Nebraska made the tournament if COVID happens again? Because they're like, hey, we were close enough.
Who would want that?
Like Nebraska in the tournament? I don't know. It's a rough watch.
Legitimately what I was asking, not the meteor thing. That's literally what I meant. Like,
I don't think we were advocating for a COVID meteor.
Look at the situation.
Not today. It's too nice of a day.
Off the court, in the stands in Lincoln yesterday. You talked about Nebraska fans going to Vegas. That is like, I don't care how much money you have saved up. That's not happening.
That is
not till Bud fights out there.
No,
September. We'll see you then, baby.
We'll be there. We will be there for that.
He will be there for sure.
Hell yeah, I'll be there. But
he's talking about me. But
I was in.
Let me know if you want to go.
So I was in a little pub, if you will, before the game.
If you will.
I almost texted you just to say hello. I was thinking about you.
Thank you. You should have.
At McKinney's. No, because I didn't want to jinx it. I was like, no, just get a win. I'll text you after.
Too many people were like, I thought of texting you. I hate it when people are like, I thought about texting you. How about you just text me? I like getting texts from people. I like talking to people.
I didn't want to bother
Matt,
you.
You need to start learning when people are lying to you. He wasn't thinking about texting.
I did text him.
Oh, did you?
No,
but he had just texted me. I was about to text him when I texted him.
We did text because we do work
You sent
on
the first text?
To Jimmy, yeah, because we work on the show together.
And I also sent him that text.
About texting.
Well, I sent him my RIP Nebraska ball text because I was thinking of him.
Right now? Matt?
I'm not. No, my computer is dead. So I have to.
We need to get a new computer.
Yeah, but I don't want to No, I have a charger. I'm in front of the microphone. I don't want to get away from the microphone because I've been talking too much. Let me put the ball on the tee. And then when you hit the ball, then I will go and grab my charger and put it on. But the setup has been a little bit too long here.
It's a winding pitch.
It is a long pitch into the strike zone of Jimmy Allen. Your question.
Like it's shallow and outside.
Would you want this? Do you even? So I was startled yesterday.
Ooh.
By when Fred Hoiberg, and there are so many ways to go about this and talk about this and different aspects. I mean, there's should Fred still be the coach? The NIL aspect, the investment from the athletic department,
continue the program.
There is the actual
PBA.
There is the actual game that we have to talk about in terms of how did it actually look? There's the whole transfer portal. Is that the right way to build sustainability at Nebraska for a basketball program? There's so many ways to go about it, but I'll start probably at the most minute, the press conference after the game.
Great word,
and
it is. He has a couple of good nuggets in there.
I am a vocabulary
hankering's yours.
Hankering
right? I love hankering.
I had a hankering for a sandwich right now.
I know it's almost 8:00. I'm getting really, really hungry too. Press conference. Fred Hoiberg goes.
Picked up, boys.
Fred Hoiberg goes. We will play in a postseason tournament. We will play.
Yeah.
We will have a postseason. And I gasped. I was like, why? Why?
You want to know the answer to that question?
Okay, money.
No.
What is it?
You remember we jokingly were talking about COVID meteors. You remember when Scott Frost turned down?
Half joking.
You remember when Scott Frost turned down the ability to go to a bowl game when it was offered to him, and how much he got crucified for it?
It's frowned upon.
Yeah, there's
great point.
There's absolutely no way after that situation, and I don't care if you're Fred Hoiberg and you got 14 people in the stands at PBA by the end of a game. If you're getting the opportunity to go to a postseason game, because that's the opposite effect of what could happen if you turn it down. You're going 100% of the time. And listen, it's a way to get the guys that are going to be back next year some reps, and it's valuable. And to your last
trip
point,
to Vegas,
it's still money too.
Hey, Jimmy,
go play some golf.
Hey, Jimmy, they got the young guys who are going to be coming back next year. They got plenty of reps this season in the Big Ten.
Sure,
it
doesn't hurt more.
Sure, but I am just
you're back in the street
collectively.
Hey, all right,
just sick and tired of this. I mean, this team is hard to watch. It is hard.
It's going to be even worse because they're all going to be in Vegas. They know they have nothing to play for. They understand how the fan base feels about them. That doesn't mean you can't find value in that, though.
I agree that you can find value in it, and I would almost say, almost always be like, look, this is a young team. It'd be good for them to go on a run. You can build some confidence. Hey, if you're returning a lot of guys next season, you definitely can say, hey, we won the crown and we got to play 4 extra games and we got you can.
They're not winning the crown.
Okay.
That look was me saying that's not happening. Not that wouldn't be good. I agree with your sentiment. It's just not going to happen.
I hope. There's only 16
at the same time though,
Jimmy,
it's
not happening.
This isn't a young team though. And this isn't a team where it's like, man, we need to build reps because the next generation of Nebraska basketball guys need to be ready for next year because that's the year we're going to be great. No, you're going to have 7 to 8 open scholarships. Bryce Williams is gone. Jawan Gary is gone.
So that brings me to my point earlier, because I asked to tee you up for this in the 7:30 segment was, did Fred Hoiberg and this team overachieve this season? You lost 2 of your top 4 scorers from a year ago, and it wasn't like you made that big splash in the transfer portal that was going to give you that shot in the arm offensively. You knew what you had in Bryce Williams. You still kind of only know what you have in Jawan Gary, because there's nights where he disappears. And over the last 7 games, it kind of feels like Bryce Williams mailed in the check.
It's a great question.
And when you look at what they were able to do before mid-February, like I alluded to a minute ago, I feel like you can't debate that they overachieved losing a guy like Keisa Tominaga and losing Rink Maston the way you did.
I think that there are 2 ways to look at it. If you're just looking at face on like you are, right? You're just looking at the talent that they lost, the talent that they got. This team was a worse team this year, just from
I don't even think it's debatable.
Every sort of perspective, not just from how they play, just from a talent and even
CJ Wilcher,
spacing and how Fred likes to play offense perspective. Fred could not operate. That offense could not operate the way that Fred wanted it to because they just did not have enough 3-point shooting. They just didn't. And if you had Rink on that team, that would have been massive, especially when you played teams like Michigan or Maryland in terms of having a stretch 5 who can pull a Derek Queen or Julian Reese or Vlad Golden out of the paint, right? Yeah. You win that game against Maryland. You win that game against Michigan. You win probably that game against USC if you have a guy like Rink Maston. That's neither here nor there. Your question, did they overachieve from a paper way, just looking at it on paper? I think they achieved where they were at. I think they kind of hit where they were on par. Sure. But there was definitely this heightened expectation from last year, not because last year was great and the team was great and they were bringing everybody back. How was last year's team built? It was built a lot on the transfer portal. You got Bryce from the transfer portal. You got Rink from the transfer portal. You got Jawan Gary, CJ Wilcher. Hell, you want to get granular and say that Keisa Tominaga came from the transfer portal, came from community college. They got all those guys from the transfer portal. So I think there was this heightened hope that, hey, this is Fred's calling card. Fred can go in the portal and grab certain guys and evaluate talent and stick that within his program, and it can blossom into success. And so when you have hope like that and a belief that the model that he used in order to have one of the best seasons in the team's history is sustainable, then yeah, they underachieved in that regard, right? But from a just paper standpoint, I think they did what they did. But at the same time, there definitely was, none of these guys got better, though. That's the biggest problem.
Sure.
None of the dudes that you picked up, all these guys who you grabbed from the portal, Sejan, Mia, Buchtengel, they were all the same guy
with Bearcat,
last
I think
year.
You could say he regressed.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair statement.
I think that is the one of the worst parts of it all, that you grab these guys from the portal and they didn't get better. They didn't blossom because Rink got better and Bryce got better and Jawan got. None of these guys you grabbed from the portal this year got better. And that's Jimmy, that's a major problem. That is a major, major problem.
Listen, what I'm about to say is not me trying to make excuses,
sure,
or more importantly, say it's acceptable. But I really wonder how much Jawan looked at how much he was pulling the wagon and looked at what he had left in the tank and was like, can I pull this thing past the finish line? They had that players-only meeting back in February, and it looked like that got fixed. Obviously, you beat Illinois, you beat Oregon. It's a different conversation, blah, blah, blah. But how much do you put on Fred versus this team just wasn't built to have the depth it did a year ago, and they weren't ready? Because, but the buck stops with the head coach, right?
Exactly.
And you have to put some, if not a lot of it, on Fred. But I ask everybody that is today that is calling for Fred Hoiberg's job, and I know Andrew calls and asks for Fred Hoiberg's job every time he calls into the show, and we already got his thoughts. But if you really believe that, think about what your expectations were back in November, and if they were high, were they realistic?
So that's where it comes down to. On paper, I don't think you're wrong in discussing of whether or not he overachieved. But if you're just talking from all the optics of the standpoints of what he did previously, how they were successful, the expectation and excitement of what was set previous, right, to this season, they underachieved. And like, I will always go back to, do they have the funds and do they have the money and do they have the resources that other teams have? No, they do not. Would it help them greatly to get more of those resources so they can get dudes so they don't have to worry about developing them?
See,
yes, absolutely. But at the same time, if you're going to go and get reclamation projects from the Power Five, like Connor Essegian and like Berke Buchtengel, you have to develop them. And they failed to develop.
Can you do that in 1 year?
They did it with Bryce. They did it with
Or
Rink.
were those guys already established? Like, see, and this here's a couple things. This is where I think the NIL and the transfer portal portion of things actually is affecting college basketball and college athletics.
Sure,
more than it is the guys are getting paid. Like, what I think is unfair about the do they have the resources, do they have the cash, absolutely not statement is we don't know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Nebraska is one of the 4 active athletic departments that are operating in the black in all of college athletics. And that's got a lot to do with football. And obviously you got to pay the pony, right? But how much of that money, like, that's where I think this is unfair, because we can't openly say that we don't know that Nebraska is not getting the funds that they need to be successful at basketball. Now that's a negative reflection on everything I just said about Fred.
Sure.
But the other thing about the transfer portal is, like, it's really hard. Like, and I know every single Nebraska fan out there is going to throw up when I make this statement. But when you look at what's been successful in Omaha and for Creighton, and look at Stephen Ashworth's first 15 games in this program, and you look at his last 15, you could have said the same thing we're saying about Fred Hoiberg, about Greg McDermott in the transfer portal, about Stephen Ashworth, about Baylor Shireman. Both of those guys struggled mightily in their first few outings in a Jays uniform. They were able to turn it around. Now, you can't necessarily, like, there's not a Baylor Shireman in a Nebraska uniform.
Yeah.
But you can't say you can't build through the transfer portal because everybody else is doing it.
So I was talking to someone yesterday, a good friend of mine, and I said,
shout out to friends.
And we were talking about this exact conversation, right? About Nebraska and Creighton and all that. And Fred, over the last year, has kind of taken up the moniker, and not even just especially over the last year, but he did it at Iowa State too. But he's taken up the moniker of the transfer portal guy.
Yeah.
Fred goes to the transfer portal. The harsh reality people don't want to talk about is that Greg McDermott goes into the transfer portal as well, and he does it better than Fred Hoiberg. He does. Jemiah Neal, Stephen Ashworth, Baylor Shireman, like Denzel Mahoney. Like, you go down the list of, like, Ryan Hawkins. Like, they go
Watson.
They go in and they get guys at an effective rate, and they end up being longtime players, and they matter. And
Marcus Foster.
Nebraska hasn't done it to that extent, and that's the harsh truth of it all. And then on top of that, what has Creighton done? They go out and they get local kids, and they develop them, and they go and get high school kids, and they develop them, and they kind of blend those two things together, which is what I think you exactly have to do in college basketball.
Kohlhoff.
You can no longer just say, no, you're good, I love it. You can no longer just say, hey, we're going to go and build through high school. You can't just do that anymore because teams are too old. But you can't just say, oh, we're only going to build through the transfer portal, because then that's a lack of continuity, lack of chemistry, and you're just rolling the dice way too often in terms of, are guys going to hit? Because there's so many factors that go into that. You have to blend the two together. Creighton has done that. Nebraska hasn't. And I think that's one of the reasons why consistently we are talking about the Blue Jays being in the NCAA tournament and having a much higher ceiling than Nebraska.
And Captain makes the point that I was trying to make about a designated associate athletic director for basketball is the monster inside Memorial Stadium is too big to ignore, right? Like, I firmly believe that the Trev hire was a big time hindering of Fred Hoiberg because he was never going to give that program. I mean, he's giving out black shirts to basketball players.
Yeah.
Like that was a thing that actually happened.
Yeah.
And it like,
and then they got injured right after
and it was
that.
such a cringeworthy moment, in my opinion. And I think Trev was trying to do it for all the right reasons, but
Sure.
like it was essentially a, hey, you're never going to be top fiddle in this place, and we're going to acknowledge that publicly on our social media for you. But
Good.
like,
That's an
if
interesting
you're
way of
not
looking
like,
at it.
I don't know if Nebraska fans should consider the possibility of ever being a winner until that the university tells you that they're going to take it seriously. And say what you want about Fred Hoiberg and the lack of development and all that, but that school building PBA and then giving them limited resources behind it after that just makes no sense from a financial standpoint. Like you're not going to invest into winning in this program outside of building facilities, but you're willing to do it essentially in every other walk of your athletic department.
Yep, well, we'll keep talking about it. I mean, there's a lot to break down about Nebraska basketball, a lot to break down about the NFL, a lot to break down about Creighton. We're going to be jumping and moving and skipping and vibing all over the place. Don't go anywhere. Listen to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Green Day underrated.
Properly rated.
Properly rated. Old Green Day better than.
Oh
newer
God,
Green Day. Old Green Day was so good.
Old Green Day was great. That Dookie album might be one of my favorite albums.
All great takes.
He's an old soul.
Like that is no, I like.
That's why I
Green
like
Day.
him.
I like people ask me like what type of music do you listen to? I like all of it.
Yeah.
I am a mixed bag human when it comes to music.
I'm either on the tractor or in the trap, depending on what I'm listening to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like I'll do 70s music, I'll do country, I'll do Green Day, I'll do like Blink One, I'll do the the yacht rock, but I'll also do like the My Parents Hate Me music too. Like I will
he just sing about his sex and drugs.
Exactly. I'll dabble ever. Shout out Green Day. Green Day doesn't get enough shout outs. Shout out Green Day.
Greatest band of all time?
Greatest band ever?
That'd be Jesse and the Rippers.
For me, it's Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet.
Ooh. See, I knew he was going to say that.
That's just
which is solid.
I mean, Nirvana probably, like, if we're talking like all time, all encompassing, Nirvana's probably up there.
Unpopular opinion, people are going to hate it. My favorite band of all time is Linkin Park.
What's wrong with that?
I don't think
they're
that's
the
a bad
They
opinion
had
at all.
banger after
To
banger.
be the greatest band of all time, though?
Do you like Smashing Pumpkins?
I don't dislike Smashing Pumpkins.
You know what? I didn't mention this. You said, what are some of the coolest events you've been to? I went to the Winter Classic literally like 2 months ago, and Smashing Pumpkins performed.
We were talking about this off air, but I went to Country 500 where Chris Stapleton was the headliner.
Yeah.
He's quite good.
That's sick. Shout out.
Only person I've ever seen live that sounds exactly like they do on the radio.
George Strait was pretty damn close for me.
I've never seen George Strait live.
George Strait was awesome.
Yeah, it's worth it.
While we're giving out shout outs to the girls high school state champions in Class A. Millard West took it home. Omaha Scott took it home in Class B. Lincoln Christian picked up a championship along with Pender and Oakland Craig. So
congratulations, ladies.
Shout out to the ladies. Shout out to your high school
the
state
head
champions.
coaches in A, B, and C. May look out for a text message for me to have you guys in on after hours next week.
Absolutely. No, it's a hell of an accomplishment to win a state title. I feel like that's something that people don't talk about enough, just in like period. Like in athletics, like to be a state champion is a pretty damn cool accomplishment. And some people might be bleeps about it and be like, well, it's just high school. Oh, you peaked in high school, close the year. But no. Win a high school state. I wish I didn't win a high school state title. I wish I did win a high school state title. Shout out the high school state champions. Champions forever.
Yeah, and
boys high school tournament.
By the way, Jimmy,
in 2 days.
Dan, with some love for the Grateful Dead. Dan's
I don't
correct.
think I could tell you one song by the Grateful Dead.
Neither can I. Doesn't John Mayer tour with them now? Yeah,
Dead and Company.
Yeah, Dead and Company.
Really quickly, back to Millard West for a second.
Go ahead.
Which is like the Grateful Dead.
And the Gessert twins, obviously, on their way off to Creighton, but those two. That team, like I don't want to make it just about the Gessert twins, but those two specifically, and that group of girls, just like every time that they've been into after hours 3 times, and you could tell when like you're like, okay, you're gonna be somebody,
sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
And those two specifically just carry themselves at such a high level. And I've always said this about Daniel Kalen. I know he's off doing other things now, not in Nebraska. Like, he is going to be successful at something. And I knew that when he was 15. When he walked in here and shook my hand for the first time, like, I was like, okay, you might not be Tom Brady, but you're probably going to run a company at some point.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel that same way about the Gesser twins at Millard West. Like, that, congratulations, and just a great group of ladies.
Hey, we got a lot to talk about Nebraska basketball. We're taking your calls. We're going to be taking Don Scandalline. We're going to get to Don in a second. We got some emails we got to read. A lot of basketball talk coming up here on 1620 The Zone.
If you don't think this is the greatest song ever made, I'll punch you in the face.
Every time I take a bite of the sandwich, I'm having some delight.
I just see Ron Burgundy in a hot tub. That's all I see.
Let this roll. Let it roll. Let it roll, Jimmy. Let it roll.
And another night is gonna be there anyway.
Makes me think of PCU, actually.
Appetite. Talking about afternoon delights. Jimmy Allen bought the whole crew sandwiches at 8 o'clock in the morning. What a delight that is.
Yet.
It is somewhere.
Pew! Oh. Afternoon delight.
Just want to hear Ron Burgundy play some jazz.
I was about to say. So Anchorman did so much for this song, right? Like this is a great song. Don't
Be
get me
80
wrong.
today, so
But I feel like
by all means, let it rip.
that movie introduced this song to so many,
a whole new generation.
Whole new generation of people who probably wouldn't have listened to it beforehand.
Like I mentioned, PCU, when they locked the doors to the like stuffy rich people meeting, and they locked the cabinet and put this on repeat 99 times, and then 10 years later, you get it in Anchorman, and it just exploded to a whole new area, and then a whole new era, and then you learn what it means, and it's like, okay,
it's about fornication. Folks.
yes,
I
and
love
this sandwich, it's fornication in your mouth.
I'll give
Jesus.
I'll give you a Canadian nickel, Matt McMaster.
A Canadian nickel.
If you could tell me who sings this song.
Afternoon delight.
Well, that's cheating because he can read.
I don't know who sings it.
I did. Starland Vocal Band, which is
That's okay, Matt. You weren't expected to get that, and
no.
there's no sarcasm. That's like, that's.
All right, we'll go to the phones. Don, you've been waiting patiently. Jesus,
easy for us to say.
I know. Clearly not. Hey, Don, what do you got for me? Don?
Don going once.
He had
Bueller.
stuff for you.
All right, Don. Call
He
back.
had the only way to fix Nebraska basketball, so hopefully he calls back.
Sorry, Don.
He had a
only
good.
one-
He had a good idea.
All
one
right,
way.
let's go to the emails. We have a lot of emails
The
here.
Equitable Bank Inbox, do they take banking personally?
Yes.
I have to make a deposit later today.
Do you?
Do.
I have to get. I got to change banks. I got to talk to Doug.
You do. He's great.
He knows the guy.
I'm not saying
he knows
that
a
'cause
bank.
he pays his place, but he does a great job.
No, I gotta talk to Doug. Doug and I have to have some speaks because getting to the point where I do need to start investing into my future. Zach writes into the Equitable Bank
No time like the present.
inbox where they take banking personally.
I already put a bed together.
What?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I put a bed together?
Yeah.
I built a bed, yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about how
Hey,
it's
that's
going
a
up here.
flex. Not everyone.
No, I
can do
know.
that.
Now
built a
he's talking about betting futures. And
Yeah.
I
investing
also
his 401k.
betting futures. Yeah, that's the only futures
It's
I
like
have.
planting
are
a tree
conference
and watching
tournament,
him
teams.
sprout.
Did you
Zach-
plant your seed?
It's my
Can I get to the Equitable Bank inbox,
Well,
please?
they take banking personally. That's what we're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're defending you.
Zach writes in.
Hi, Zach.
Oh yes.
S-hole program.
Yep.
Absolute losers.
Checks out.
Get Fred out of Lincoln.
He said S-hole. I thought there was an A and an S in front of that when he said it. I'm like, you
No.
can't say that.
No. I already have said that.
he's already.
Wow,
Yeah.
sorry.
we're-
All right, back in the boat. Sorry.
I already have said that, and we did not press the dump button either.
Whoopsie.
He's still here.
Whoops. Anyone
That's
in
all that
that
matters.
Anyone that is making excuses for this garbage and manufacturing silver linings for the trash that Hoiberg and the athletic department keeps putting out on the basketball court rather than holding them accountable is a part of the problem. Can you name even one single example of a coach starting his coaching career at a school by going 37-80 in conference play in his first 6 seasons, limping to the finish line of their 6th season and going 0-5 with a conference record of 7-13 and not even making their own conference tournament? Then magically figuring it out and turn the program into a consistent NCAA tournament team and had them consistently toward the top of the conference standings? I'll save you the time and trouble. The answer is no.
0, yeah. Zach, next time you email in, we need you to tell us how you actually feel.
Yeah.
And please stop pulling punches. That's unnecessary.
Not enough emotion from Zach on the Equitable Bank inbox. Hey, Terry emails in.
He
Hi,
just
Terry.
wants to win.
Terry subjects this email. Thank you, Iowa. Once again, we need to thank the Iowa
where we are?
Hawkeyes for putting NU fans out of their misery. Doesn't matter what sports season is, they seem to always put an end to our stay in purgatory and send us straight south. Guess that means I can shift my focus this week to working on cars, getting 18 in, watching all the TPC Sawgrass coverage, and preparing for being ground zero for the bomb cyclone that may or may not be coming.
I see no problems with any of this week for him. That sounds peaceful.
It's going to be 81 today.
Yeah. You get his 18 in.
Hey, PWP fan goes, anyone else take Omaha to win the Summit League tournament? You're damn right I
We all
did.
I did. I let him know in the YouTube page.
I put, you know what? I'll go in the car and I'll grab the ticket. 25 to win 125.
Is PWP fan a fan of the local wrestling promotion? Is that why he's PWP fan?
I don't know.
Do we know that?
I have no clue. That'd be
PWP
big.
fan, let us
Can
know.
I, if you,
Phoenix Wrestling Pro.
if you are like if that's a thing, I would love to be a manager for wrestling.
You didn't know there's 2 local promotions in Omaha?
I did not
There's
know that.
Magnum Pro Wrestling. And,
Oh my God, call me right now.
I've got some friends.
I will be such a good
You might like it
wrestling
more than radio.
manager.
Joey, if you're listening, 402-951-1620. I got a guy.
Terry writes back.
Hi,
Hi
Terry.
guys.
Hi, Terry.
We talk about being a development school, but simple question: who's playing better now who's playing better now versus back in December? I can't think of anyone. 2 years ago, when NU had so many injuries, players came off the bench and stepped up. This team looks the same as it did at the start of the year. That's an issue, either in recruiting or coaching, but both land at the feet of the head coach. Terry, spot on. Spot on. It is an issue.
And that's the point.
It is a massive issue.
That's the point I was trying to make about the Bryce Williams effect at the end of the season, because I asked Gary this question last year on the show, and I asked if Bryce Williams was the glue guy of the team a year ago. And I don't think he got the sentiment I was asking, because his response was he's a dude guy, which is obviously true also.
Sure.
But I felt like he was better in being the guy in shifts a year ago, where he didn't always need to be your leading scorer. And on the team this year, he had to be the leading scorer for them to be as efficient as they needed to be, because they didn't have anybody else to do that.
It is Jawan, right? Is it Jawan or Bryce?
Bryce. Yeah.
He needed to be the alpha. And yesterday, Iowa had one hell of a game plan. I mean, they go, we're going to blitz him. He's going to come off screen. We're going to blitz him. And
because you knew you weren't getting anything else from anybody else.
So Connor Sejan yesterday went 0 of 11 from the floor. Okay. 0 of 11. That's your transfer portal pickup. That's your spacing guy. That was the dude who was supposed to replace Casey. That was the dude who was supposed to kind of put the pieces together on the offensive end so Bryce and Juwan could more regularly get to the hoop. Okay? That Connor Sejan was like the puzzle piece to Fred Hoiberg's transfer portal class, in the regard that he brought what has made Fred's offense so effective, which is the shooting, which is the spacing, which is the 4-1-5 out type deal.
Right.
He goes 0 of 11. In an elimination game to keep your season alive. He goes 0 of 11. Sam Hoiberg, I love him. I like Sam.
He's the energy guy, and has been since he got here. Yeah.
You talk about the glue guy. That's a glue guy. There's a reason why he's in the starting lineup. There's a reason he's in the closing lineup, because he just brings things together.
Well, if you remember, the discussion back in mid-January, early February was, it's nepotism, and the only reason he plays is because he's the coach's kid.
Yes.
You remember that conversation?
Yeah, I do.
That was a real thing.
I remember when he got checked into a game 2 years ago, and the student section started getting on their feet and clapping because they thought it was a joke that he was playing. Okay? I remember that. I remember Sam Hoiberg, like that same convo, just, he's not that good of a player. He's too small. He can't play anything like that. Proved everybody wrong this year.
110% on defense every single time he's out there.
But I don't want Sam Hoiberg taking 9 shots. Okay? Took 9 shots yesterday, went 3 of 9.
And I hate to keep making this comparison, when we talk about the Nebraska to Creighton comparison, like, I kind of feel the same way about Jemiah Neal. I think Jemiah Neal is much better as a facilitator and doesn't need to take as many shots, and definitely probably less than Ryan Kalkbrenner.
It's just one of those things where it's like, I will blitz Bryce, and you saw the flaw of this team. You saw the lack of depth. You saw the fact, there's a reason why Jawan had 24 yesterday. And it's because he played.
It was by design. Iowa's design.
He played his butt off, but you can live with Jawan having 24 and winning the game 83-68.
I mean, that has been most people's plans down the stretch. And I mean, it's usually the point of most defenses is to turn quality shooters into volume shooters.
Yes.
And if you can get Juwan Gary taking over 20 shots, that's a winning formula. And I know nobody wants to hear that. That's just the way it happens.
It is one of those things where Iowa said, we are going to just try and eliminate your best player on the court, and you are going to have to prove to us that you're an NCAA tournament team. Because an NCAA tournament team has multiple dudes. An NCAA tournament team has depth.
Or has a dude that can overcome.
Exactly. Yeah. Nebraska didn't have either of those yesterday. Plain and simple. And we can go back and we can talk about bad foul calls against Ohio State. We can talk about, the siesta they went on in the middle of the year with the 6-game losing streak.
Here's the other problem. Like to your point, then I think this is what you're trying to hone in on.
Sure.
Nebraska averaged 75.6 points per game, 7.56 points per game this season. Down the 7-game losing streak, the only time they hit that number was against Ohio State in the double overtime. Now, they did have 89 at the end of regulation, but anybody that watched that game saw why. But they looked like they took the foot off the gas and that they were perfectly fine with the wins over Illinois and the wins over Oregon.
Yeah.
And that was going to be enough to get to them to the end. That's my biggest problem with Fred Hoiberg rather than anything we've talked about up until this point.
My biggest problem with this team is that everybody's got a major flaw. Like, I've never seen a roster constructed where every single player down the line just has some major, twitch or problem.
Let me ask you this,
hard
though.
to overcome.
At least nobody's left out.
If you get Rick Mass back this year, do you feel that same way? Because I don't know if you do, because he did a lot of things well that none of your other pieces do.
I think he's the only one. Yeah, I think he's probably the only one you could look at and be like, overall, well-rounded, great player.
Right.
But you go down the list, you're like, Braxton Mia is a 0 on offense. Connor
it's probably a little too high.
Connor Esigian can't play defense. Neither can Andrew Morgan, at least not at a high level. I like Morgan a ton. I think Morgan is one of the...
I think he's going to be fine.
Awesome. Yeah. He is great. But, as of right now, no. And they're still trying to... We'll see if he comes back next year. But, he's a guy where it's like, man, it got tough on defense sometimes for him. But that's kind of what they had to do. They had to sacrifice the defense because he was the only guy who you could kind of trust consistently at that 4 spot on offense. Berke, I don't need to tell you the problems that he's had on the court.
Yeah, but he's been injured too. I don't know if that's
even before that, Jimmy. He was taken. My biggest problem with Berke isn't the lack of athleticism or ability or anything like that, because he has a lot of tools. He has a lot of skills. It's the shot selection that was the biggest problem. That's his biggest flaw. He just thought he was a 3-point shooter. And maybe this offense called for it because they lacked spacing so much, where he needed to be that guy, or at least he convinced himself he needed to be that guy, or someone told him he needed to be that guy. Regardless of all of that, he just had terrible shot selection.
I know.
And Jawan and Bryce both have the same problem, which is they would disappear. There would be games where they would kind of just...
I know we're still shovel in hand throwing dirt on this team right now, but at some point we're going to have to flip the page to the offseason and next year, right? I think we're both pretty sure that Fred's coming back for another season, right?
He talked about it yesterday as if he was.
Yeah, I
don't know. I think there's going to
I believe he will be. But I think
I'm
that
50-50.
I think that changes the conversation to what do parameters look like next year? Mm-hmm. And what does he need to accomplish? Because in my opinion, for him to come back next season, which I think happens, and for him to get one more after that, I think he has to win a tournament game next year. Or it's not even debatable, right?
I think for him, in terms of expectations,
win, not get there, win a game
for next year are simply this. Not only do you have to it's not about getting to the tournament and winning a game. I know that people want to look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, that's the bare minimum for me.
That's fine. That's okay. Hey, just win a game. For me, it's all about long-term sustainability. Fred next year, more than anything, has to prove that he can have long-term success at Nebraska. He tried doing it through high school guys his first 3 years. It failed miserably. They went 7 wins, 10 wins. Okay?
Well, there
was a mixture, but they had
there's
way
a
more.
Couple other things behind the scenes. On that too.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
After year 3, he goes, you know what? We're going to hammer more in on the transfer portal. And it looked good, and then this happened. Next year, they have to have a good season, not just to win a tournament game, not just so we can have a postseason, not just so he can up his record and get more wins. You got to prove that, hey, year in and year out, you can do this. Year in and year out, you can evaluate and then develop talent and consistently be competing at the top or near the top of the Big Ten. That's what it comes down to. I don't think it has a ton, it's easy to set parameters and say you got to win this amount of games, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. No. Just prove you can do this year in and year out. And so that's why when you say you're confident he's coming back, I mean, we'll see. I'm kind of 50-50 in terms of how I feel about it, because he is a good coach, and you see he's a good coach, and he's an incredible representation of Nebraska and the basketball program, and you never have any problems, and people like him. Here's the thing, Jimmy. We're in year 6.
Well, and that's the other thing I want to talk about, because a lot of the but around Fred has been centered around the 3 years that Matt Abdelmassih was at Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
And the way they tried building the program and it didn't work like that. Well, here's the one problem with that now. Matt Abdelmassih is putting together a really good squad at St. John's. And that's not a really good look for the way things have gone here. Now, listen, that's apples to oranges and not a fair comparison. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different moving parts there, right? So
that is a good point.
But
you're not off.
But like, for all the negative connotations, and listen, I think Matt Abdelmassih did some things that didn't really make a whole lot of sense around here. And I don't think him and Fred were the best marriage, and he's definitely a better fit for Patino, what they want to do. And
all that, yeah, you're right.
Are more morally aligned, I guess is the best way to put.
Yeah.
But like, I think at some point you've got to stop saying, okay, well, you got to look at. I think a lot of us were looking at 2 different points in time as 2 completely different coaches.
Sure.
And I don't think that's fair anymore.
For me though, like, I had this conversation with Caleb Henry on Friday, and he tried telling me that it was basically year 3. And I'm like, no.
A lot of people felt that way.
No.
A lot of people felt that way.
I'm sorry, guys. I'll stand firm and pat, and you know me. I can play the tango, and I can give up, and I can let things whatever. No, I'm foot down. It's year 6, okay? You don't
Matt McMaster, big fan of the horizontal tango.
Big fan. Massive fan of the horizontal tango.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Afternoon delight.
He's young. Stuff's working at an all-time high.
I'm telling you right now, it is not year 3. It does not matter that was a good one, Jimmy.
Well,
You'll get that joke in 20 years.
I'm just an advocator for yes.
Yeah. It just
we have endorsements for that.
It's hard for me to get over the fact that he built through the portal 1 year, and they made it to the tournament, had one hell of a year last season, and it was fun. Couldn't replicate it. Like, it bugs the crap out of me that just 1 year later, doing the same thing you did the year before, building through the portal, it did not work. And now you're at the point where, Jimmy, you got to do it again. You're going to have 7 to 8 scholarships open to completely restructure this roster. And you got to do the same song and dance. And at this point, cross your fingers, hope and pray that they hit this time. And that guys who are returning from this team develop, which is probably more crucial than.
And with his extension, his buyout becomes $10 million too. And that's another discussion. That's the reason I think that he's back next year too. Is they gave him that extension. They gave him the extension. And
I'll tell you this right now, Memorial Stadium ain't going to be cheap. Ain't going to be cheap to fix that thing.
If you roll down your window in your car right now and put your ear out of it, you can hear the pennies being pinched around all of college athletics.
All of everywhere. Because how many more expenses do we have now in college sports that we didn't have just merely a couple years ago? Literally 8
Revenue
months ago.
sharing's coming. You've now got unlimited amount of football coaches you can have on staff. I think Matt Rule just added 4 more today.
Exactly. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. Just the amount of money that they have, and it's just like they have to be smart and they have to be careful. And I understand that might be a factor in determining whether or not you bring back Fred. But at the same time, it's like you gotta, if you're serious about basketball, in my opinion, and you're serious about this being a winning program, you have to look around the country and see all these teams across the country who have first-year head coaches who are going to the NCAA tournament, who have turned things around incredibly quickly. And you got to ask yourself, why can't we do that? And why don't we do that? And if it's because you believe in Fred so much, so be it. But then you have to convince yourself, why do we believe in Fred so much? In my opinion.
Because the Iowa State tenure is going to have to
at some
that's
point,
lost its cachet.
I was about
to
say, oh my God, at some point, we the credit has got to fall out a little bit, right?
And it doesn't help that Iowa State hasn't necessarily taken a step back since he's left either.
No, TJ's done an incredible job over there, and they are rolling. And once again, they're going to be, I think,
going to be a force in March again.
Yeah,
probably a 2 or 3 seed.
So, and they're going to be a team that's going to be able to go far. Hey, we go to the lines. Eric just called back. Hey, Eric, how you doing, my man?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Good. What you got for me?
Hey, I'll start with this. I think the beauty of sports is it's a bottom line business.
Yeah.
And stats don't lie.
Mm-hmm.
So we can all agree that Nebraska's just really treading on a very, very fine line. Like there's no room for error, coaching or player wise. And I think the past few years, last year with Casey, this year with Bryce, they covered up for a lot.
Yep.
So I think this team is. I got a couple stats for you. So
Go ahead. Love it.
They're sitting at 161st in the country in assist to turnover ratio. And I know like there's a few games back, I believe they shot 15 to 62, and they had 12 assists. To me, that's
is that good?
Malpractice.
Yeah, is that good?
To me, if you're shooting 25% and you have 12 assists in the game, that's
lack of
malpractice
and lack of effort.
That's lack of effort, but that's also coaching malpractice.
Yeah.
And then also, they're sitting at 192nd in the country in the Big Ten. You're a Big Ten team, and you're averaging, I can't remember what it was per game, but they're sitting at 192nd in the country in total rebounding. As a Big Ten team, that's
good enough.
And Bearcay's at like your leading rebounder at 5.7 a game. That's not good enough. And I think it's the little things. Like the more this season's gone on, I mean, it's evident they can't do the little things that win the games.
Yeah.
And like after watching the game last night, I know it's a completely different ball game, but even you watch St. Thomas, they're a Division III team, and they're doing the little things. They didn't win because UNO's a machine, but they do the little things, and they do things that Nebraska doesn't do. I don't think they can do.
Sure.
But I mean, it's that one game was I was off after that. I mean, you cannot play that kind of ball. You definitely can't play that kind of ball in the Big Ten. Being 192nd in the country and rebounding, I think that's just coaching malpractice. So I'm just kind of curious what your guys' thought is.
Nebraska,
Thanks.
thanks,
Great job.
Eric. Nebraska had 3 games this year where you had a double-digit rebounder, 3 total, and one of those games was against Murray State. Not great.
They just don't. I mean,
and by the way, one of those games was Bryce Williams, where he only had 10 too.
I mean, it's what did Eric say? Eric said it beautifully. It's just the little things. It's closing out the games. It's rebounding. It's having energy every single game. It's being locked in for every single game. Heck, here's another one. It's hitting a 3-pointer when you're on a 5-0 run to make it an 8-0 run at home to get the crowd cheering and into it. It's making the big stop on the defensive end when your crowd is on the top of their feet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's the little stuff.
This team never looked like it fed off of anything, whether it was at home or on the road. Like, it just never felt like they brought their own juice at any point.
Fred said in the press conference, you cannot lose 5 games at home. They got to do a better job of protecting the court, and sometimes I feel like they walked into PBA thinking they'd get bailed out by the energy that would be there, and they played poor basketball. That's exactly what happened yesterday, and they're not going to the Big Ten tournament because of it. Hey, don't go anywhere. Don't be like Nebraska basketball and fade out to the distance. Keep listening to 1620 The Zone. We got Evan Bland coming up at right after this in our next segment. We'll be talking a little bit Husker baseball, who had a rough weekend, and it's just been a rough couple weeks in general. We'll touch on some football as well, and then Jacob Bigelow to talk hoops at 9 o'clock. You're listening to Gary and Matt.
Was I turned off?
Yeah, your thing
You're
might
off.
not
My
be working.
intro was so good. It was such a good intro that we all missed it. It was a tough weekend for for Nebraska.
I mean, it was
men's
yesterday.
sports. It was yesterday. Nebraska basketball ends up dropping their game to Iowa, not go to the Big Ten tournament. But Nebraska baseball, not too far away at Haymarket Park, dropped 2 out of 3 games against the Washington Huskies to open up Big Ten play. Been a rough week for Nebraska baseball in general. And in doing that, and to talk about it, we bring in the Omaha World Herald's finest young writer, Evan Bland. Evan, how are you doing?
Hi guys, just spreading cheer on a Monday morning. It's all good.
Happy Monday.
It's been a rough weekend, and you know what I thought? I go, you know what? You know how we cheer everybody up? We bring in Evan Bland to talk about a baseball team that is teetering on the edge of having no more hope. After watching those 3 games in Lincoln, Evan, what were your takeaways, and where are we at now at this point with Nebraska baseball after losing Mason McConaughey for basically the entire year and starting off a very promising season 5-8?
Yeah, I mean, you hope if things turn around that this is the sort of the low point of the season, I suppose. Washington's a team that was largely projected to finish toward the bottom of the Big Ten. It was a team that, like Nebraska, was missing its Friday starter because of an injury. And those are series, especially being in Lincoln, that you feel like you really need to win. And so you get swept on Saturday. You lose as many Big Ten series on Saturday as you lost the entirety of last season. And, you could just kind of feel it. Like, I mean, that's kind of how I put it in my recap, was like this day that began with excitement and optimism ended with an extended heart-to-heart in the outfield as the teams talking through things and the leaders are having their say and things like that. So I think it's certainly possible that they turn things around from here. I mean, most of this roster has won a lot of games in the last year plus, and so you can't rule it out. And maybe Washington's a decent team at the end of the day, but it's no doubt it was a disappointing start at home. And you mentioned Nebraska basketball. I mean, just being in the park Sunday and having the game on, being able to kind of follow that as well with what was going on with baseball. I mean, you could just kind of tell Husker Nation was at a bit of a tipping point in terms of what they could handle on the weekend. So it probably behooved the baseball team to get that Sunday win and at least take the edge off.
The one positive is you get to stay at home, right? And you welcome a Wichita State team that's coming into Lincoln. How much of a benefit is it for Nebraska to get a short turnaround to get back out on the diamond, but also stay at home for that stretch?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're ready to get back out there and play. To this point, it's been almost like a football schedule where you play on the weekends, you have the weekdays off.
Right.
And like there, as much as the midweeks have sort of been troublesome for Nebraska in recent years, like the major benefits for those games is that it provides an opportunity for some of the other guys on the team to show what they can do. And so we mentioned Mason McConaughey a year ago at this time. He was making his first Nebraska start on a Tuesday, and he looked really good. Mm-hmm. And that sort of allowed him to force his way into the rotation into the season that he had. And so I think there's still that possibility that there are players on Nebraska's roster right now who haven't had a lot of these high leverage moments or big opportunities that could come out and show what they could do. And maybe that can inform some of the personnel decisions on the weekends moving forward as well. And so Wichita State's not a great team by any means, but history says with Nebraska that when you spend the first 3 weeks on the road, it tends to be a little tougher. And when you come home, that's when you're able to start stacking some wins. And so that's kind of where they are right now. Obviously, it didn't happen that way against Washington last weekend, but you can win a couple against Wichita State, get a little momentum going, some positive results. But in baseball, that's such an important thing. So we'll see who maybe can emerge on a Tuesday or Wednesday, maybe some new unlikely heroes, and maybe that'll affect what things look like here moving forward.
I hate to make everything in March in baseball about weather, but obviously when you have a West Coast team come in and we're projected to project where you said they were before the season, I think you had them second to last in your column in your poll. How much of it is, listen, Nebraska's a cold weather team. They've already had a couple of games canceled this season to cold weather. We've seen them striking out at the plate a ton. And Washington does have the ability to be out on the coast and in a little bit of a better climate. Does that play into a factor for you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's early in the season, you have to sort of build that into what you're seeing in terms of the results. And like, I mean, it's just the way it is. Like if you're in the South, if you're on the West Coast, you're able to practice outside for most of the winter. And those teams aren't having to go into an indoor football complex because there's snow. You know, they're able to get out in the field. They're able to get out and see the flight of the balls that they're hitting. They're able to, from a pitcher's standpoint, kind of feel the same thing. And so, like the little factoid I keep going back to was in the Big Ten era, Nebraska's regional teams that ended up going to the NCAA tournament, their combined records before their first home game was sub 500. So like it's not all that unusual for Nebraska to be what they were coming home, being 4-6. And, you know, again, you lose the home series and that hurts, but like the start, especially given the level of opponents that they've played, doesn't tell you that this team's going to fall off the map. And you look around the Big Ten, and there are schools playing opponents that are directional schools that maybe you've never heard of that are stacking up wins, but it really doesn't matter until you get to this point. And their RPIs aren't really any better than Nebraska's because of the level of competition that they're playing. So I think people get frustrated. I do think there's a psychological component that when basketball goes poorly and maybe football goes poorly, that can carry over into baseball. And it's a different animal. Like one weekend in baseball is less of an indictment than it would be in those other sports. Right. And so I think that part kind of plays into it as well. And again, there's so many guys that have proven track records. So much of this team has won in the past. So you can't write them off, but I do think it's just very natural, especially for a cold weather school, to take a little bit of time to ramp up. And if they start dropping some midweek games or their West Coast trip doesn't go well, you can kind of reevaluate. But I do think where they are right now is not all that unusual relative to Nebraska history.
All right, let's talk about this West Coast trip. It's a new era of college baseball. You got UCLA and USC in the conference, so they're going out to California to play them on back-to-back weekends, and then in between that, they'll have a Tuesday and Wednesday game against Pepperdine. Evan, I'm just kind of curious, what is the trip going to look like? Do you know the schedule? How long are they going to be out there? It's also too, what is kind of do you sense a little bit of a different preparation from the coaching staff and from the players in terms of getting out and going somewhere out to play conference games in California and then being out there for 11 days? It's kind of a bit of a curveball, you know?
Yeah, it's a different deal for sure. I mean, first of all, they're in the middle of a month right now where they're essentially playing an old Pac-12 schedule, right? I mean, you go Washington, UCLA, Southern Cal, and then you've got Oregon State in Lincoln after that. So like Nebraska's in the Pac-12 for this month. That's just kind of how it is. But they're going out there. It's kind of like a Major League Baseball West Coast swing, like you mentioned, UCLA, Pepperdine, Southern Cal, and I think it's a trip that they're happy with how it turned out because you don't have to go out there twice. It's one trip to the West Coast. You acclimate. Pepperdine's not a good team right now. I know maybe casual fans could remember when they were pretty decent, but they're like 3-14, and so those are some games that you feel like you probably should take if you're Nebraska. And UCLA and USC are tricky because they've got as much history as anybody in college baseball, but they haven't been very good for a couple of years in UCLA's case and many years in USC's case. And so it looks like maybe they're a little bit better this year, and their home field situations are kind of strange. They're in the midst of either relocating or renovating, and it's just there's a lot going on from what those teams are doing right now. But yeah, I mean, for Nebraska, it's a chance to kind of go on the road, to bond, to have a chance to start stacking some of those wins. I think just like this midweek, that next one is going to be a chance to continue to tinker with that lineup, find out what sticks positionally in terms of batting order, and then we'll see what the rotation looks like. I think based on what they showed this weekend, you feel decent about going Horn, Walsh, and Brockett, but again, maybe somebody in the midweek forces their way into that conversation like McConaughey a year ago, maybe TJ Coates. I think it would be the guy that I would look at. I'll be fascinated to see if he gets a start here this week and maybe can gain some momentum as a possible starter, or maybe it's somebody else. So I just kind of like what they've been doing. I think these are games against teams that are probably, at least UCLA and USC, that are Nebraska's peers. And so if you can win a couple series, I think they feel pretty good about where they are.
There's a lot to nitpick from this weekend, obviously, when you talk about 2 losses, but they did. I think we got to point out they did get a win. Drew Christo came in a sticky situation in the bottom of the 5th, or excuse me, the top of the 5th with bases loaded and got out of it. Really animated on the mound and came in a really tough situation and showed some moxie. What'd you think of Drew Christo's performance in that win for a guy that had some question marks about him coming into the season?
Yeah, it was a big spot too. I mean, he came in with the bases loaded and 2 outs, and the defense had let Brockett down behind him, and you just kind of were waiting for the other shoe to drop the way that it did on Saturday. And instead, he gets the strikeout on a breaker in the dirt and goes 3 strong innings, and Nebraska's able to pull away. And like, Christo's a guy who was a starter earlier in his career, and he embraced the idea of being a bullpen guy who's going to put out the fire. So, like, that's the spot that he wants to be in, that he has had some success in this year. I think he's emerged as one of their more reliable bullpen arms, and he's going to need to continue to be as they move forward. I think they're going to check on Tucker Timmerman maybe coming back in the next few weeks, but right now, I mean, I think Christo's probably the guy, along with Jalen Worthley, who you would turn to first in the bullpen. So important. He's one of those senior guys who could have gone and signed with a professional team in the offseason, but felt like there was more to do still at Nebraska. And I think just one of those glue guys from a culture standpoint too. I mean, you can just kind of tell he's got the intangibles. He's a leader. He's one of those. I was trying to think of the last Nebraska baseball player to be a pre-med major, but like, that's kind of where he stands. He kind of has some Ty Robinson vibes, I think, in that way, nice. to make a football reference. Yeah. But those are the guys you got to have. Like, if you want to have a really good team, it's the superstars, but it's also kind of the veterans who've been there, who you can rely on, who really thrive in their role. And I think Christo's coming into that form.
Do we have any idea why his glove got checked?
I think that's pretty standard. I'm not sure if there was anything specific to that.
It looked like it was a little excessive by the umpire. I think he might have just been a little upset that Drew was over celebrating on the mound.
Sure. Evan Bland of the Omaha World Herald. Evan, before we get you out of here, tomorrow, Matt Rule will talk to the media, first time in a little bit. What is the number one thing that you're looking for, that you want to hear, that you're interested in knowing from the Husker football head coach as he talks for the first time in quite a while?
Maybe this is a little bit boring, but I want to hear about how guys have been looking this winter, who's taking some steps forward, if there have been any position changes that they're looking at right now, just what's been going on the last month. Because I say that because Matt Rule has done such a good job at making the rounds nationally that I think we have a pretty good sense about his thoughts on college football. Yeah. I think we have a pretty good sense about his approach to NIL and the portal and sort of the big picture strategy stuff. I just don't know that we've heard many updates about what these guys have looked like behind the scenes. Yeah. So whether you're talking about transfers or whether you're talking about young guys that are looking to take that next step, positions that have question marks, like what's the defensive line looking like at this point? Some other positions like that. So I kind of wanted him to get in the weeds a little bit and talk about some of these individual players and position groups. So we'll see. It'll be a fun start to spring.
Hey, Evan, thank you so much for joining us again. As always, we'll talk to you again next week. All right.
Appreciate it, guys. Yep. See ya.
Hey, I couldn't agree more with Evan in terms of him talking about the dudes. We've heard a lot from Matt Rule in terms of what he thinks about college football, his national macro thoughts. I want to hear, hey, this freshman looks good. This sophomore's taking big steps. Here's a guy who we've moved him into this position, and now he's working well. I want to hear that.
I think you're going to hear that latter one that you just said more than this freshman or sophomore looks good.
Sure.
Because, I mean, he has openly talked about not wanting to praise underclassmen. And
that's a good point.
He referred to his star freshman linebacker last year by his nickname and then caught himself immediately. It was like, oh, I don't normally do that for guys that are freshmen.
Yeah. B9.
B9.
It's funny. I do want to, like, Evan
He's
brought
pretty
up
good, though.
He's pretty good. Evan brought up a great point, though. Like, we've heard all of his other thoughts. I want a State of the Union tomorrow on Nebraska football. I want to know.
I wouldn't hold your breath.
As much as I just want as much as
I'm
I
with
can.
you. I agree.
I just settle for lunch.
About the program. That's what I want. I want a full just.
You know what, Matt and Lincoln,
analysis.
402-951-1620. We got some questions.
He does listen. He's a big fan of the show.
I just want an analysis of like, where are you at right now with this team, with this roster? What's the outlook? Give it to me. Okay.
Will Matt McMaster be in place to ask these questions?
Every day.
Yeah, this is why I say hope for lunch at least.
Every presser I go. But it's just
join you.
It's one of those things. Hey, it'd be fun. It's just one of those things where I get it. I respect his thoughts on national college football. I think it's important that Nebraska has a coach that feels that he needs to talk about those things and express his opinions about those things. I think that's a positive. But for tomorrow, I just want the Huskers, baby. I just want Nebraska.
What is the we got a break here?
We have to break.
Okay.
We have several breaks.
I have a question for you on the other side of the break.
Okay, other side of the break. We'll get into your question. We got some Creighton basketball to talk about. Hey, we got Jacob Bigelow coming up at 9 o'clock, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. I'm rocking. You're rocking. We're all rocking.
It's a rocking Monday.
It's a rocking Monday here on 1620 The Zone. Matt McMaster with Jimmy Allen today. Gary Sharp is currently on his way back from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, after your Omaha Mavericks are the champions of the Summit League.
You've been really doom and gloom today for a day that's supposed to be celebratory, by the way.
There's a lot of doom and gloom that's been happening.
Omaha won a championship. Let us not forget that.
Creighton's
Your
dancing.
Mavericks are dancing. They're dancing. They're doing the tango.
I don't think we need that.
Tango, brother, tango.
I don't think we need that. That was a little excessive.
But we're excited.
They're dancing, man.
This is great.
Good for them. I'm so
8:51.
happy.
We need happy news.
They're going to be a 15 seed.
Oh, I meant the horns. I'm fine with the celebration.
Oh, 8:51.
Mavericks versus Spartans.
This
the
is like
Frankie
lunchtime.
Fiddler revenge game.
The Frankie. I like it. Put it on a shirt. Sell it.
Not that it would be not that he has any revenge or.
Well, J.J. White tried to take him out at the knee.
Vengeful taste or anything. I'm pretty sure Frankie is still very
The
much.
answer to that's no, by the
They're
way.
like how they
Very
try to
good.
take out Adam Banks.
Very good friends with all those people on those.
Bring Tanya
teams.
Harding in to help you out.
Bring Dan Campbell in. I know Tanya Harding.
That was.
Bring Dan.
I didn't say
You
anything.
made that look. You gave me that look.
I thought he said
wouldn't
Dan
know
Campbell
who
in.
Tanya
Yeah.
Harding.
Dan Campbell to take out a knee.
Of course, I
Dan's
do.
always welcome
Right?
down here.
I, Tanya,
Well,
with Margot Robbie
for
was an
yourself.
incredible movie. It
I
was.
I was 100% about to ask you if you knew Tanya
I
Harding
know.
as well.
You made that look at me. I know that look that all the people here who are older than me make when they bring someone up that I may or may not know.
Can I ask you a question that I'm going to regret asking you?
Yeah.
Speaking of Dan Campbell, I'll tell you why I'm at. How old do you think I am?
Legitimately,
I want to really answer.
I think you are 32 years old.
That you're a liar, and I appreciate that.
Okay.
You know, Dan thought I was old enough to know or watch Jack Nicklaus's last major win.
Jeez.
I almost stabbed him in the face one day.
The 86 Masters?
He was like, "Do you think I'm 50?"
Dan,
Yeah.
I don't remember. I was 3.
Yeah.
He thought I was in my 50s because my
He legitimately said, "Oh, I thought you were in your 50s."
Wow.
Yeah.
Dan for
And-
someone who is a little bit older is way more rude.
Dan is only
about-
32.
Yeah. Is really rude about
See,
other people's
but
ages. I'm respectful of
in
it. all
Dan's
right?
defense about me, I've aged quite a bit in the past 3 years. My
Any
hair's
particular reason?
that's for the after show.
Because Kansas is on a downturn.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I
Bill
have
Self
a
did it
lot
to you.
more white
Look at
hair
you,
now
Bill.
than I used to. A few more wrinkle, all that stuff.
Must
So
be
and,
nice.
and plus,
Me
I'm
too.
always a curmudgeon.
It's true.
That is a fact.
So he
factual
thought
statement.
that
That's
I
why I
was
feed you when I
older.
get here. I know how to keep you happy.
Hey, you do.
I know that sandwich is sitting in my stomach right now, though.
Yeah,
Like,
I
it's
know.
That's what
kinda-
food
I know.
does.
I'm having a little bit of regret about that as well.
It flew over like a lead balloon. I don't think having a hearty Italian sandwich at 6:30 in the morning was probably
It was
the best
8
It was
play.
8 o'clock. Which, when you work this shift, that's like
That's lunch.
almost lunchtime for
Yeah.
normal
It's
people.
basically lunchtime, and
Yeah.
I'm working off
The,
of zero sleep right
Also,
now.
you're
The
gonna
energy
take a
drink I
nap
had this
later.
morning is weighing off, though.
This nap that I'm going to take after
Legendary?
the show. Oh my god! You think I passed out last night? Good lord, I'm going to pass out when I get home. Supposed to go to the driving range? Screw that. I'm
Can we-
taking a nap.
Can we have a legit conversation? What
We-
percent?
I
What
hope we do.
percentage are we putting on Gary Sharp being here tomorrow?
He'll be here tomorrow.
He'll be here tomorrow.
Hell, there was probably a small part of him that said, "Well, I could."
I'm
No,
60.
no.
He will be
I'm,
here.
I'm 60-40 right now.
He'll be here.
No, the partying was done last night. They
He might
partied
still
it
have a
up.
net around his neck.
He should walk.
He did
in.
get a piece. They
He
cut one
should.
off for him.
Absolutely. They should cut one off for him. They cut one off for him when they won the regular season title. So I'm glad he's gonna. Does Gary get a ring?
That's up to the individual program, but the
Yeah, I
way
would be
Crutch and those
surprised.
guys are good, they'll do something for him.
Yeah. And you
they're
get-
really good to him.
You get 2 rings, right? Like you
Have
get
you
one
seen
ring for the
Josh Odson's rings?
for Iowa Western.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They've
I
come in.
have
They've
that.
come into the studio and personally fit him for
Mhm.
them
Really?
Yeah.
in the
I
studio.
did not know that. Josh Hodson
He is-
got.
Josh
he's-
Hodson's a champion many
He's-
times over.
he's Iowa Western royalty.
Does Kansas give rings out to their broadcaster when they
Yeah.
won? Yeah.
But I worked for the women's program, so we just wanted to make the tournament.
Gotcha.
But hey, I got a hell of a bag of gear. So
There you go.
Oh yeah, that party pack when you walk in. I got a Gary's.
when
so
Gary's
much
list,
gear.
that white
Oh,
thing
my
he was
God.
wearing, yeah, and I saw people behind the bit. I was like, I remember that. I had a bag, and then before we left for Stanford, they said, "Hey, go back to equipment. They have a bag for you." Oh no, I got one. No,
John-
no, you got
John
another bag.
McHugh,
Hell
where's,
yeah.
where's our bag?
What do you
Postgame
think
show
are the
needs a bag.
odds that Gary grabbed a shirt for either
100%.
you or me?
They gave him a
Oh,
shirt.
for you guys?
For you
No,
or me.
zero.
Oh no, he didn't have
0%.
to.
No,
He didn't
no
have
shot.
to.
No
You don't
shot.
think there's any shot
0%.
that he grabbed a Summit League
No.
conference tournament
no.
champ?
He's going to text whoever the equipment guy at UNO is today and ask for one now just to make me look
Are
like
the
an idiot.
are the St. Thomas Summit League championship shirts on their way to Africa right now?
Probably.
Yeah, more
Yeah.
likely.
They go with those Chief shirts. Yeah.
Hell
Pretty
yeah.
good.
They're like, too bad I didn't like that St. Thomas. I kind of said that I wish St. Thomas didn't
Would have
win
lost, yeah.
because I wanted it to matter. Like I wanted them to win.
They
and then
played
you're
like
in.
I think it still matters.
They
to them.
played like they did.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're still
1,000,000%.
happy.
Well, that's the character of that team. I mean, that team is well coached. They like each other, and you know what? They are well constructed. It's a well constructed basketball team. And
dude, Sutton had 13 rebounds with 16 minutes to go. You think it mattered to him? It might have mattered.
It mattered.
Yeah.
Oh, it mattered so much. Talking about basketball teams that aren't really well constructed, Jacob Bigelow will be on at 9:00 to discuss about the Nebraska Corn Huskers. I guess postseason hopes done, but now reinvigorated because
there's a 13% chance.
They're going to the Crown or the NIT or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Jacob will have all the answers. We'll have all the questions. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. We have breaking news. We need to get a camera right now on Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Jordan Scholes. Twitter is down. Twitter is now currently down. It's not working.
Have you confirmed this?
Joey said Twitter was down.
I'm refreshing at a perfectly fine.
Well, Joey's going to run
Are
this
you
place
fine?
one day.
Is
So
Twitter
he
down?
says it.
Because
Let me see.
Joey said the Twitter's been down. The only thing that's still on my feed is a Trev Alberts tweet and a Kevin Kugler picture.
Apparently, Nebraska's still projected in the NCAA tournament, so this must be down.
Got a nice fist bump from Cougs on the way out of
that's
Chi
nice.
the other night.
I'm just saying, this is a nightmare situation for the NFL.
It is not refreshing. Listen,
wow.
I trust Joey Colbert half the time.
On the day of NFL free agency, Twitter is down. The insiders are freaking out, but our insider is right here, right now, on the phone line. Mr. Jacob
all that matters.
Bigelow. Jacob, hey, bud.
Hello. I hope I'm not in the same league as the most well-paid losers in the world. If Twitter's really down today, then it's a beautiful day to touch grass.
Well-paid losers. You don't like NFL insiders?
No. I think any and that's not just NFL. That's any sport. I think that is the biggest.
Wow.
No,
we love Wendy.
Yeah. What the heck?
He's our own. He's you. He's all of us.
Wendy is one of our own. But I mean, I don't put Wendy in like the same. When I think of like the insiders, I think of the most depressing thing I've ever read, which was that New York Post profile on Shams. And like talking about his screen time and how like he, how he like takes a shower with his phone and stuff like that because he doesn't want to miss anything.
So did Brett Favre, it didn't work out for him.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Wasn't pixelated well.
Hey, by the way, close personal friend, Sham Sharnia. Go ahead.
I thought you said Brett Favre.
Yeah, it was like Mississippi.
He took money from you too.
Yeah.
No.
Jacob, do you need to refresh your threads? Is your threads game good? Is that like what we need to get you?
I'm trying to get off of social media now that my responsibilities around basketball are nearing a close for the year. I'm trying to make my way toward an extensive social media cleanse.
Nice.
Actually,
farewell post on the gram yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Jacob Bigelow with a fire Instagram. I mean, it is a well put together page.
It's right up there with Livy Dunn.
Yeah, very comparable. Right next to each other. Two titans of the Instagram game, Jacob Bigelow and Livy Dunn. Yeah. You can put that in your Twitter
Hashtag
bio.
peach emoji for both.
Jacob, congratulations for when you marry that starting pitcher for whatever major league franchise you end up marrying.
Yeah. Congrats.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching the Pirates this year. I'm real looking forward to the Pirates.
Hey, Matt said he was 50-50 on Fred coming back next year. Where are you at?
50-50 on like that's what he thinks or that's how he feels?
I think both.
His ears just perked up.
I don't think it's 50-50. I really don't. I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter. I don't think that Nebraska has around $16 million to cut ties with a coach that won Big Ten Coach of the Year last season, took the program to the NCAA tournament just last season, made the Big Ten tournament semifinals just last season, and then came back this year and won 18 games, 17 games. The way it ended, the topsy-turviness of the season, notwithstanding, and I am not looking. I'm not here to carry water for any head coach or anyone in sports. I'll leave that for people during football season. But I think that there's a whole I think that the discussion around Fred and he should be fired. I mean they've also people forgotten that they gave him a contract extension.
Yeah.
That's a fully guaranteed contract extension just last season. I mean, I think people have. I mean, obviously. Recency bias, hindsight, whatever you may think, but I don't think that with the current state of Nebraska athletics, they're gonna just
pull the rug out for around $16 million.
Yeah, I think it's all fair points. I think the reason why, and that's definitely where I'm leaning toward, just all of those factors that you talk about, right? Because they have to pay a lot of money to a lot of different things now upcoming, right? And so the buyout definitely is a factor. At the same time, it's like 6 seasons, 80 and 107. What is it? 30 and 80 in the conference play it's just not good enough. And this team this year is it unfair to just say that straight up? Like you can talk about whatever you want to talk about with this team in terms of like, the 6-game losing streak and the close games and the overtime and all that. Like they just weren't good enough, Jacob. Is that unfair to say they're just flat out not good enough?
I would agree with you. It doesn't get much more topsy-turvy of a season than a season with a 6-game losing streak in the middle of it and a 5-game losing streak to end it. That's that it was going around yesterday that they at one point were 12-2 and they finished the season 17 and 14 or 17 and 13. Sometimes regardless, you go 5 and double-digit losses to finish the season. That's the thing for me is that you can only make chicken salad out of chicken as much as so many times, and that is an indictment on your roster construction and and depth and guys that you thought would be able to showcase things in your system at your school compared to the previous system or school they were at before that just didn't. And there was a lot of swings and misses with the roster and the way it was put together, and I think also in what they expected out of guys that they brought in. So there was a lot of swings and misses, and we are where we are now.
Bryce Williams only has 7 points, goes 0 for 3 from beyond the arc yesterday, in a gotta-have-it game. Is that where the program was, what Iowa did, where Bryce is, or a combination of all three?
I think it's a combination of the last two. Iowa blitzed the hell out of him when he was getting the ball and we were trying to set screens for him. They were blitzing everything, and I think that is. I think that's also pretty indicative of where that team was this year, because I think Fran McCaffrey was content with, if Jawan Gary's got to try and beat us, so be it. Like that, because who's your next option? Looking at the roster yesterday, to if they're going to blitz Bryce and they're going to go all in on defending Bryce, and you got to make the rest of that team beat you. I feel pretty good about my chances, regardless of your matchup or whoever.
You think Raleigh Worcester could do it?
Some of the shots he took, he maybe thought he could do it, but I don't know. That's just. That's an indictment on the way that team was put together. I don't want to. Bryce Williams, the 2 seasons he had in a Nebraska uniform were pretty good. Pretty. I don't want to go full Curb Your Enthusiasm. Pretty good. Yeah. But they were. He had quite a run here, and that is the biggest success story for Nebraska in terms of a transfer portal mid-major guy who comes to the Big Ten, develops into an elite scorer at the Big Ten level, and that's tip of the cap to Bryce and for his career at Nebraska. But like I said, if I'm a coach looking at this team top to bottom, if I'm going to try to make everyone not named Bryce Williams beat us, I like my chances.
So they're going to go back into the portal. That's how they're going to build the team next year, and whether you trust him, Fred, or you don't trust Fred, that's just the reality. That's how this program is now built, right? It's just consistently they're going to go into the portal, they're going to get guys, and they're going to hope it works, right? It failed, though, from a perspective of taking guys who had some higher upside from Power 5 programs. Do you think that he will now, when he goes back into the well, he's going to now think of more, hey, we want to get high production group of 5 dudes? Or do you think that his confidence is not going to waver in his system and he's just going to go and kind of do the same thing in terms of getting the same sorts of prospects?
Yeah, that starts to sound eerily similar to some football things, right? We heard Kurt Signetti beat the drum of production over projection. When he was putting Indiana's roster together, I think that a similar idea was followed by the football program in Lincoln. But this is basketball we're talking about. If you want to compare, the two Nebraska teams year to year, I mean, I affectionately called last year's team a mid-major all-star team because your starting five came from Bradley. Your starting three came from Charlotte. Yeah. Your lightning rod leading scorer was a junior college guy who was kindly listed as being 6 feet tall. Some of the pieces you brought in off the bench, that I affectionately, I say that, like I said, that was an affectionate label for last year's team. And then you look at this group this year, it was, some cast-offs, kind of gives off, Island of Misfit Toys vibes outside of Bryce Williams and Jawan Gary. But they were all guys who had played extensive minutes at the power conference level, whether it be, Esesian in the Big Ten, Griffiths, who played extensive minutes as a freshman and then was on a milk carton for most of the season in Lincoln. Worcester and all of his Pac-12 experience. Mia in the Pac-12. Perkay's 1 year up and down in the Pac-12. And at times they looked like a bunch of mid-major guys who didn't acclimate well to playing in the Big Ten. So I think you got to find the right balance. You got to find a balance of it. Guys who have been there, guys who have been around. I think back to Fred, 2 years ago now, talking about how when they were in the portal, they looked for guys that came from winning programs and guys that knew what it took to win. I think you gotta add all those ingredients when you're looking to build a roster, not just Nebraska next year, but I think that's all over the place. Production, background, do they know how to win? There's a lot of different variables that go into it, but I think they're all going to be on the table for Nebraska this offseason.
In this day and age of college athletics, you got to find a perfect way to marry the high school recruiting with the transfer portal. How much do you think that they spend time looking for high school players to try to help long term in this offseason?
I think they spend a good amount. I think something that hasn't been talked about enough, like looking forward to next year, is they have two guys that they got from the high school ranks that redshirted this year that they remain very high on. And I'm not saying that they're going to come in next year and be all league guys and people immediately hit you with, well, why didn't they play this year? Well, they had an old team with 7 seniors. And if you're going to bring in 7 seniors, all portal guys, all that, came there to play, it's tough to, say, hey, this true freshman is going to find minutes too. But they've got 2 freshmen that redshirted this year that they're really high on. And I'm, like I said, I'm not saying they're going to come in and set the world on fire, but I also think they're going to take a long, hard look, at high school guys, this summer off season, because, contrary to popular belief, they do acknowledge players at the high school level. They do make an effort to build relationships with high school players and try to get them to Lincoln, contrary to what some may believe.
All right, I need 3 things from you. We're talking to Jacob Bigelow here, Gary and Matt. I need a Big East champion, I need a Big Ten champion, and then I need a team that you want to put your stamp on for March. Could be anywhere in the country. So Big East champion, Big Ten, and then any team you want to put your stamp on. Jacob Bigelow's team to make a run in the tournament.
Wow. Big Ten, it's tough to pick anyone but Michigan State right now. Michigan State is getting hot at the right time. I'm not going to do the cliche where I list months of the year and then the coach's name, because that hasn't applied.
You're taking shots at everybody today. Jeez.
No, well, and that hasn't applied for a few years, but I think this might be the first time in a while that it does. Michigan State's clicking at the right time. They're deep. They've got, they lead the country in bench points. They're clicking at the right time. They've been really fun to watch. I think Maryland would be my second choice for a Big Ten champion, but right now it's tough to go anywhere but Michigan State. In the Big East, it's tough to pick. It's tough to pick against the Johnnies at MSG with everything that's going to be going on. All the hype that's going on there. The Patino PR tour that we've seen these last couple of weeks. But if I had to. But I wouldn't be surprised if Creighton's in the final. I would not. I think the potential of a Creighton-UConn semifinal on would that be Friday night at the Garden?
A semi, yeah.
That would be a scene and a half, and I would not be shocked if Creighton's in the final. But I'm, call me corny. It's tough to pick against the Johnnies and the Patino Sans that's been going on this season, and then a team to put a stamp on for the month of March. I know they've weaseled their way, not weaseled. They're on a hot streak right now, and they're in bid stealer territory. But then they're not even a lock for the NCAA tournament. But one of the hottest teams in the country right now is Colorado State.
Nice.
And if you know me well, you know some connections I have to that program, that coaching staff. They are clicking at the right time. They went on the road and beat Boise State on Friday night. They're the 2 seed in the Mountain West tournament. And I think they could easily get hot. And I don't know if they get to the Mountain West final, if they'd be considered a bid stealer, bid thief, whatever you want to call it. But they're clicking at the right time. And Nico Medved is still a damn good basketball coach.
Chalk, and interesting. Almost like the Michael Severe radio tournament bracket, I mean, it's almost exactly like that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I think it's a top-heavy season in college basketball at all levels. I really do. I think we'll see that play out in the month of March.
I agree.
But it's tough to pick against. It's tough to pick against the teams that are playing well and clicking at the right time this time of year.
Hey, real quick before we get you out of here, how many teams do you think the Big East gets in?
They got 4 right now, right?
Yeah,
correct.
4 that are probably considered locks, and
Xavier?
Maybe.
Who's actually the 4 seed in the Big East tournament now?
Yeah, I don't. I'll say 4 just to play it safe, but I mean, I will have to hand up, say I haven't watched enough of Xavier to know what I think of them.
Sure.
I know that they're playing well these last couple weeks. I know that, but I think right now I'd say they probably stick with 4 because I think those 4 that you'd consider locks are pretty rock solid resume wise.
Biggs, who's your matchup for the severe tournament bracket right now?
We can't check his Twitter's down.
Twitter's down? Do you know who you're facing off against?
I believe I am matched up against Mitch Sherman in this round.
That's a good matchup. That's a good test for you.
Get one of the first 2 games, and then hopefully you can hold serve at home and finish it in Game 6.
Yeah,
congrats on the run.
Yeah, it's a good run. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat Mitch.
We've been voting religiously, so
we got you. We're back. We're the Bigelow Army. I mean, this is the number one. I just want to say right now,
Bigelow's buddies.
If Sipple were to win this whole thing, there are a lot of radio shows that could claim it. Okay. If you are to win this, you are our champion. You know that? Like, you are our guy. Like,
Connor and Josh too.
Like, we are your top. I'm claiming, Gary and Matt are claiming you more than any other show.
Hey, the only reference I'll make in regards to that is the clip of Tobin Anderson in the Fairleigh Dickinson locker room after they won their playing game, where he has them all in the huddle and he says, "Hey, gather around, fellas. You know what I realized this morning? The more film I watch of Purdue, the more I think we can beat them." That's the only reference I'll make in that regard.
So Mitch and 4.
You've been warned.
You've been warned, Mitch.
Hey, no, I haven't been around long enough to earn my local media lifetime achievement award. But the least I can do is say we're prepared. We're prepared for the matchup.
You just angered the entire city of Gretna.
Ha! Is that game in Gretna?
Oh, it has to be. Mitch has home field.
Yeah, it's got to be in Gretna, right? Hey, Jacob. Thanks for coming on as always. Thank you for doing such great coverage of this Nebraska basketball team. I know at times it has been tough and hard and difficult to watch this team game in and game out either look incredible or look terrible. But kudos to you and all the work that you've done this season.
Yeah, people are calling you the People's Champ on YouTube, by the way.
Wait, shout out to the YouTube chat. I appreciate the YouTube chatters, and I appreciate you, Matt. That was very kind of you to say. I think saying anything that I do with basketball, calling it coverage, is quite generous and quite polite. But I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, Jacob, I want to point out I said nothing nice about you.
Good rest of the week.
Hey,
that was expected, Jimmy. That was expected. That was no surprises from me. But I appreciate you guys. Have a good show.
Be good, buddy.
Appreciate it, Jacob Bigelow. We'll keep having on Biggs despite the fact it won't be basketball season.
Well, he can talk about life. Yeah,
he's got takes.
He's got all the takes. That's the one thing about Jay. I'll tell you something right now. What separates Jacob Bigelow?
Suspect highway driver, but good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry,
a deep
Jay.
pull. That's
Sorry,
a
Jay.
deep pull.
Damn.
Here's the thing about Biggs. And I'm advocating for him as a radio like guest and everything. Because we want him to do well in this.
The
poll.
Stretch Big podcast is really good.
He is a Stretch Big type radio host. He can talk about anything. All right. If you want football, you want basketball. Hell, if you want to talk about Hooters wings, Jacob Bigelow is your guy. Okay. I'm just telling you right now.
I got Hooters for the wings.
The guy is multifaceted Swiss Army knife radio host, and radio guest.
He can play any position.
There's a lot of people in our audience that just learned Hooters has wings.
Hooters has incredible wings.
I always did like their wings.
Hooters wings?
Yeah. Since I was a kid.
Wings. Yeah. I go to Hooters for the wings.
You read a lot of articles?
What?
He doesn't get that
reference.
No, I don't. I
they
go
had
to
good
Hooters for the
articles,
wings.
though.
No
They had really
awesome.
good writers.
They are good. Hey, we got an awesome show remaining here. Okay, we have to talk a little Creighton basketball, a little NFL free agency, maybe touch a bit.
Do we need to talk about free agent? Do we know what's happening?
I have X is down, and the world is crumbling, and the meteor is going to hit, and it might have COVID. And if COVID happens, then Nebraska basketball might make the tournament. Is that
there? You go. There we go.
13% chance. Yeah, nah. I'll just say it right now. Season's over. I'll watch them at the Crown, but season's over. Kind of happy it is.
Opening day just a couple weeks
Anybody
away.
feel good if they win the NIT or whatever it's called?
Because none of them are coming back is the thing.
Feel good about that?
They
I
are.
don't think you do.
If they win the NIT, nobody on this team is returning. I mean, it's Sejan. There was a couple guys, but not enough to make it like a big impact, to be like, holy crap, this is awesome experience for them. We can talk about that.
Get help with recruiting. I don't know.
We can talk about that coming up in the next break. Don't go anywhere. Listen to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone. Sun is shining for a couple of people today. Well, the sun is
That's
shining
Mad
overall.
McMaster. He's
There's a lot of sun shining.
doing his best Jimmy Chavez impersonation. I mean, a curmudgeon.
No, he's
I am.
not.
I am
Not
not a
today.
curmudgeon today. I'm not.
Oh, doom and gloomy's been
I'm not.
firing
doing
Fred Hoiberg.
it. No, I said that I
Nobody's.
was.
No, there's gonna be 0 Cinderellas this year.
Hey,
He's had no sleep.
talking about
I'm actually
Cinderellas.
defending him.
Well, not really a Cinderella because they're a 2 seed. Creighton women basketball is in the Big East championship game tonight. They take on UConn at 7:00. You can catch that game on FS1. They absolutely kicked the crap out of Seton Hall yesterday.
Basketball term officially. Yeah.
73-44.
UConn's
pretty damn good.
I will say this though, Seton Hall did go on a couple of runs in that game to keep it close early.
Sure.
And that's the nicest thing I could say about
The
that
nicest thing.
Yeah.
The nice thing you can say. They play a big game tonight. There are a couple other games. When they played UConn earlier in the year, they were pretty competitive. You know, they lost both
game.
games.
In Omaha, yes.
In Omaha, they were competitive.
In Stores, no.
But yeah, should be a really good game on FS1 tonight. The Creighton men will be. Are they leaving today or are they leaving? They'd be leaving tomorrow,
Yep.
right, for the Big East tournament. They will end up. They are the 2 seed.
We'll try and get 18 today before they go to New York.
Big East.
Mac is probably listening to this right now on the links.
Yep.
I think they're
clearing the head.
I'm going to say it right now. I got a gut feeling.
I got a feeling.
I think they're going to win the Big East. I think they're going to win the tournament.
You think they're going to beat UConn and St. John's in
Yes.
back-to-back days?
Yes. I just have
I
it.
do too.
I just think they're going to do it.
I've been saying that, and I just think
Doesn't
it's-
Mac? That's one of the big things he wants. Is he'd love to win a Big East tournament, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll join you on that. Yeah. Okay.
Kalkbrenner.
Why
like,
not?
His final season, Ashworth looked great against Butler. These last 2 games, like
Oh, it's 5 of 6 from 3 good. Is that good?
It's
yeah,
decent.
Is that good? Is that good?
Almost as good as 9 of 10.
They needed Stephen Ashworth to have that type of game against Butler.
He's had some struggles.
They needed him to start shooting the ball well, and it was so important that he did against Butler. And Fedor hit 2 threes against Butler in that second half. Like, that's massive. If he can pick that up, if he can raise the floor of that team.
Okay, listen, I'm not piling on you. I'm not. I'm not trying to do that. But can we stop with the Fedor thing? Like,
no, I won't stop.
Like,
I won't stop.
I
He's
think,
important. He's an important player.
I think he's a very nice complementary piece, and I think that's good enough. Like, people are like, I get the text every game. Is this the Fedor breakout game?
I think
no,
that's obnoxious.
It's
I'm
not,
saying that.
and there's not gonna be one. There's just not. Like, listen, when he came in, what he's had to do to get into the shape that he needed to be in to compete, like, he is going to be a nice complementary piece. This is there's not gonna be the he goes off for 30 game this year. There's just not. I'm sorry.
I don't disagree with that.
Sorry, that was more
No,
me being
that's-
irritated at other people.
That's fine. But like with Fedor and Isaac Trout, like those are 2 guys that if they are giving solid minutes off of that bench and they are contributing consistently, like the floor of this, because the ceiling is high. The ceiling of this team is already, I think, very, very high with Kalkbrenner and Ashworth and McAndrew, and this team knows their roles. But once you get past that starting lineup, I still, you kind of get to the point where it's like you're grasping for straws a little bit in terms of depth. It's just not as deep of a team as we've seen from Creighton in the past, right? It just isn't. And so if Isaac Trout and Fedor Zugic can play good basketball and have those minutes where maybe one of the big 3 aren't out on the floor, 2 of the big 3 aren't out on the floor, like if they can raise the floor of those minutes and continue the offensive production at a decently high level, like I think this team could go very far, not only just in the Big East tournament, but like the NCAA tournament in general. And so I think when those guys are playing well, it's important that they played well against Butler, and it's important that McAndrew played well against Seton Hall, because it's like
he played pretty well against Butler too.
Yeah, it's important that, I mean, he had 14 points. Like, it's important that those guys who aren't necessarily your superstars like gain that confidence at the end of the Big East season, because they're the ones that are really going to matter. When push comes to shove, when they're playing tough games against tough opponents in the NCAA tournament. But this team, I think they're going to win for 2 reasons. I just think they have it in them. I think that Mac really, really wants it. Ryan really, really wants it. Ashworth really, really wants it. Like they are determined. Kalkbrenner has said multiple times, like, man, I want to win that Big East title. And like another aspect too is they're playing for more in the Big East Conference tournament than other teams are playing for. And
I mean, other than Xavier, yeah, sure.
Good point. But outside of like when you're comparing them to Marquette and St. John's and UConn, they're playing for more because Creighton is firmly on that like 8-9 seed line. And you and I have talked about how good the 1 seed in this tournament is. To be a 7 seed is a big deal. Okay. Yep. There is a drop off between the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds in this NCAA tournament. And so the fact that not only are they just playing to be Big East champions, they're also playing to give themselves an advantage heading into the NCAA tournament. And I think that added that added dosage of motivation is really, really good for this team, on top of the fact they're playing good basketball heading into this. Like, they played well against Butler. They needed that. They got momentum. And all these teams that they're going to play, whether it be St. John's or Marquette, UConn, like, they've played them all close. Like, they beat UConn at Stores. They beat Marquette at home. Like, all those games were super competitive. When they played St. John's on the road, that was a really competitive game. Like, they've been in it. So I'm going to say right now, I think Creighton is going to win the Big East. I think they got it. I think they got it in them.
Well, and like you talked about the depth, and I think you meant from like the starting depth versus the bench depth for Creighton.
Yes.
Yeah. I agree with that sentiment, but like it also feels like at any night you can have like this is where they've struggled, but you can have anybody that you're not counting on contributing. Like Jason Green didn't give you a single point against Butler, but it felt like he can go off for 14 at any night. You know what I mean?
I totally get what you're saying.
But the problem is that you'll have nights where Stephen Ashworth and those role players aren't giving you what you need, right? So, the only way they win, in my opinion, is if Ryan Kalkbrenner puts on an all-time defensive performance at MSG, and I think he can do that. And like I said, I agree with you. I think they win this. My question is it better? Like, yes, is it better for them to get off that 8-9 line? Absolutely,
massive.
Excuse me, but do they need to win, or do they need to win 1 or 2 and get more rest? And that's going to be like, listen, I don't think Mac's going to be like, listen, let's tank it tonight, guys, to go get some sleep.
No.
I don't think that's going to be the case by any stretch of the imagination.
I'll go out to a show and dinner.
I think it may be better. I think you could make the argument it may be better for them to get to the semifinals and lose than to win the whole thing.
I think you can make that argument for almost any team in any tournament.
Absolutely.
Like, I think that there is, because people talk about it like, a 3 games in 3 days standpoint. Like, no, we're past
against that level of competition.
We're past 3 games in 3 days. You're actually playing 5 games in 10 days, right? Like, it's even shorter than that, because if you start playing on Friday and then and
if you're and just taking credit of the equation, if you're one of the Wednesday teams and you're able to go on a run, you played 4 in 4 days.
It's crazy. So it's like you can make that argument for almost any conference, but I think with Creighton in particular, like, there are some teams that don't need a conference title.
Yeah.
Okay. Michigan State does not need to win the Big Ten conference
but they
title.
probably will anyway.
Would it be nice for them? Absolutely. Would the team love to hang a banner and have a ring or everything like that? Sure. But they're primed for March. That's a team that they know they're going to win the national championship. And I'm not saying that Creighton, you never know what can happen. It's sports, right? Like, I'm not saying that Creighton can't win the national championship, but like, they're not in that position where it's like, hey, this is a national championship team, and like, hey, they got to be ready for March, and that's what's going to matter. Like, this is a team that's very, very good. They've had a really good season. They have a great coach. They have 2 hell of a players. One of them is the Big East Player of the Year, in my opinion, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Like, it is for them to win the Big East this year with everything that they've gone through, with Pop being down and roster construction and basically having to change roles and guys having to step up in the way that they have needed them to step up. It would be absolutely incredible if they were to win the Big East. And I think they're clicking going into the tournament, which always matters. And, they've played these teams that they're going to play, that they're going to need to beat to win this tournament really, really close and really, really well over this season. So I think they can do it.
The one thing that, like, I think is different about this team versus previous Creighton teams is like Jemiah Neal's ability to create his own shot. Like, if he needs to, and when the offense dictates for him to do it, the fact that you can have that in your arsenal is a really important piece for this team, because we've seen Creighton teams not be able to hit the 3-point shot, and it really deterred them from being able to win basketball games. Now, I think Jason Green and Jemiah Neal both in that equation, obviously Ryan Kalkbrenner in the middle, but specifically those other 2 guys, being able to take some of the pressure off Ryan and having to get 2-point field goals is a really, really big deal down the stretch.
Massive. Absolutely. Hey, we Twitter's back up, so we have some news coming into the feed. Aaron Rodgers currently kind of being pegged toward Pittsburgh Steelers. That's something that has
he is going to visit the Seattle Seahawks as well.
that has had a lot of movement in the last couple of days. I mean, you kind of notice that once you start hearing more and more of a player connected to a team, it's not necessarily the nail in the coffin, but it's getting interesting. The conversations that is going on with the Steelers and with Aaron Rodgers. Justin Fields is a free agent. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's going to try free agency. I think that is going to be an underrated piece of this free agency cycle for the NFL. I know I'm a homer. I still believe in him. I still believe that Justin Fields can be a really good quarterback in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. He's got a lot of work to do in terms of throwing the ball, but I think any team that picks up Justin Fields is going to be, it's a good move. If you're, I think it's the outside of Sam Darnold. I think it's the top quarterback move you can make is getting Justin Fields.
Does it surprise you more guys haven't seemed interested in going to Minnesota? And maybe there's the J.J. McCarthy of it all.
I think that's what it is. I think that's 1,000,000% what it is. And I think
a couple pretty good dudes to throw the football to.
They're ready. They're ready to play J.J. They want to play J.J. Granted, he's got to put some weight back on because he looked awful on the sideline during that Detroit game.
Yeah, he looked sick.
He looked really, really skinny. So hopefully, he gets what he needs to get done. I think J.J. McCarthy, once again, I like J.J. McCarthy. I know I'm in the minority. I really do think he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. I think he's in the best situation possible.
Yeah, two pretty good dudes throw the football too.
And Kevin O'Connell, and a pretty damn good tight end as well. Hey, Steph Curry's going to be an assistant general manager for Davidson. He is, while an active player, going to help out with their basketball department.
What a time to be alive.
Yep. Then he's going to come in and he will be, I guess, prime maybe to take over as a full general manager for a college basketball team.
Who is he, Doug Gottlieb?
I have no clue. Other news, I'm trying to, I had, Grady Jarrett's getting released by the Falcons. You can add that to a list of pass rushers who are going to be able to be signed.
What happened to pass rushers being a prime? What happened?
I have no clue. There's so many out there. Well, two of them got kind of signed up with Max Crosby and Myles Garrett. They're going to stay with their respected teams. But man, if you want a pass rusher,
a load of money.
Von Miller's out there as well. He got released yesterday by the Bills, but I think they're going to look to restructure his deal. And then the first big domino of the free agency cycle for the NFL, J.C. Horn signing a record-setting 4-year, $100 million contract extension with the Carolina Panthers, drafted by Matt Rule.
People forget.
J.C. Horn, a Matt Rule guy, he gets paid. Hell of a draft pick. He's a hell of a corner.
He's just got to stay healthy.
Yes, he does. Absolute freak. Him and Patrick Surtain will always be connected at the hip together because of them being in the same draft.
Working out for both of them, though.
Working out for both really well. Hey, don't go anywhere. We got one more segment left and then the crossover. You're listening to Gary and Matt here on 1620 The Zone. I find it so funny that Twitter crashed during
back
the
up.
NFL free agency. It's just, of course it would. Why
So now we
wouldn't?
reflect on how we all dealt. What a 12 minutes that was.
What a 12 minutes. It was a scary, scary 12 minutes. It was actually funny as heck, though.
God forbid we're
that-
going to have to go outside and enjoy the day.
As soon as it went down, or as soon as it came back up, just all of the NFL tweets just flooded.
They're there now.
back.
Shoot.
They're there.
I need to go vote in my bracket.
I can't stand Aaron Rodgers.
60-40, by the way, October to March. So
Really?
pretty solid. I
Good
mean,
take.
I thought it would be.
Good job,
I
Omaha.
thought it would be a bit more competitive.
And the only reason it's 60-40 is because it's March. If we'd have asked this in July, probably been closer to 80.
yeah.
But I feel like you have to remind
football,
people about
That's why it's.
October. Like you have to list all of the things that happen in October that make it so great. I feel like
Whole question: do you have to remind people about October?
I feel like with March,
Not in good old Nebraska.
It's
They
kinda
know
ju-
October.
it's just kind of set in the month, right? You say March, and immediately you're like,
The first
Oh,
thing
no,
you
I
don't
know.
think about when I say October is postseason baseball.
no. I think about
Nebraska
I
versus
think
Wisconsin.
about Oktoberfest, Halloween,
These are good things, too.
taking my imaginary girlfriend to a pumpkin patch that I definitely don't want to go
You
to.
think you like that because she's imaginary? You won't like that.
No, I know immediately I won't.
You
like
will
that.
enjoy it if you take advantage of our schedule, go weekday
Was
afternoon.
that a shameless plug for your?
My love life.
Yeah.
No.
402-951-1620.
By the way,
Nice.
first
like
off,
to date Matt.
First off, no shameless plugs. All right,
Okay.
every plug has.
Feel free to
no
listen to After
shame.
Hours on Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m.
I just plug. I have no shame in my plugs. I just plug.
There you go.
Hashtag I just plug.
Are you guys not on tonight?
No, there's Westwood one on.
That
Navigations.
time, yeah. Okay.
What is a worse? And by the way, listen how I said worst date, not better date. What is a
Ooh.
worse date? The apple picking or the pumpkin patch?
First of all, shout out to our friends in Nebraska City because they do it right for the Apple Jacks Festival. So how dare you slander that? So I'm going to go with the pumpkin patch. It's crowded, too
Yeah,
many people.
Too many people.
Well, you know how I feel about people.
It's a lot of children there. It's expensive.
Another thing too, you can't really eat a pumpkin. Like,
Some
pumpkin
people are
isn't
allergic to
pumpkin
hay.
isn't really like a food. Like I know you do like the pumpkin seeds and whatever, and you
Let me
make
tell you
pumpkin
about
pie.
pumpkin pie. Yeah,
But like, that's
Pumpkin
the only
bread?
thing it's got. That's like you don't grab a pumpkin. You don't sear a pumpkin.
good. Put it on a skewer.
Have you ever had a seared pumpkin?
No, it sounds actually horrible.
It sounds
but, yeah,
awful. But you can grab an apple and you can eat an apple
it's true.
while
and
you're
they're
at
cheaper.
the pumpkin patch. You probably have spiked apple cider at a pumpkin patch or
Some
at
applesauce.
apple picking place.
And he'll
it's
get
quite
some
incredible.
balanced tick. He'll see.
Yeah.
He'll have a nice time. The berry patch was Bellevue.
Bellevue Berry Farm.
Oh, Berry Farm. Also very nice.
It's been a rough. I've been thinking about this for a little bit. If you're not a Creighton,
How long you been single? Oh, sorry.
No,
I really thought we were getting
I
one
did
of
too.
those.
no.
Get Jacob back on the line.
it's
He's
Yeah,
been-
pull up
it's
the
been,
black leather couch, everybody.
5 years now. It's been
Congratulations.
5 years of being single. 5 whole years. It's incredible.
That's how long I've been
No.
with my wife.
I was thinking about, wow, good for you. I was thinking about this. If you're not a Creighton basketball fan, if you don't root for Creighton athletics, it has been a tough 5 months of just Nebraska sports in general.
Nebraska won a bowl game.
People really do forget.
I
We
don't
beat,
know.
We beat Wisconsin.
It was you went 7-6. It was 6-6. And by the way, it was a 7-6 that now, because of everything that happened with the coaches
Yeah.
and with the transfer portal targets and how well they
Brandon
did the
Williams, don't
offseason,
worry.
like
Five-star.
it sounds and looks better now. Like they've done a good job of taking the momentum of the Pinstripe Bowl and actually parlaying it into something and having a positive outlook. All that to say, though, you were in a prime position to get to a bowl game that was better than the Pinstripe Bowl, and you ended up losing to two teams you shouldn't have lost to in UCLA and USC. And then let's not forget that final game of the season where they should have beaten Iowa,
Yep.
without a doubt. Like
Had him on the ropes.
it was once again just one of those football seasons where you're like, you should have won. They just won enough to make it to a bowl game, which they haven't done in 8 years
Long
before
time.
that.
Yeah.
But it still was if we're doing revisionist history, it still was a rough, like there were some rough and tumbles during that football season. And then you go to basketball season where this team,
Remember halftime of the Colorado game? That was a lot of fun.
that was so much fun. Boy, that fourth quarter of the Colorado game was terrible.
Yep.
I mean, that was awful. No one even
Third
wanted
quarter wasn't much better.
No, that fourth quarter was so bad. People were like, do we really have to go to Sandy's right now? Do we really have to drink after this
Yeah,
game?
most
It
people
was
were there by then.
Oh yeah, they were already there. Then this basketball season, torturous. just the way this team plays and the ups and the downs and how bipolar they were, and just thinking that you were in, thinking you were out, thinking you were in. Now you're back out. Now you're not even in the Big Ten tournament.
It's Nebraska, the hokey pokey of sports.
And then Nebraska volleyball had one hell of a year. But then, man, how heartbreaking was it to lose that Final Four game and the way that they did? Get reverse swept by a team that, you was in your conference that you had beaten, or, they had lost to. And then in the fashion too, Caroline Jaravicious had an absolutely incredible game.
Yeah. Doesn't help.
And doesn't help the fact that, there is a revenge game there because she was a former Nebraska player. And then baseball, you go 5-8 to start the year after being ranked to begin the season.
I think they're going to be fine though.
It's a tough start. It's been a little bit. If you're not a Creighton basketball fan and you're a fan of sports in Nebraska, it's a tough start. So we'll go to the line. Let's go to Ted, who wants to talk a little bit before we get out of here. Hey, Ted, how are you?
Hey, are you guys talking about Omaha basketball?
We have been
all morning.
We have been, Ted. We have been. We talked about earlier.
Started the whole first hour about it.
How about them Mavs, man?
How about them Mavs? Wasn't that a great game last night?
It was one hell of a game, Ted. Are you an alumni?
You know what? I'm not an alumni, but I was a big fan. I was at the game last night. I had a great time.
That's awesome, Ted. You were there? You were up in Sioux Falls?
I was there. I was sitting courtside.
Did you get Gary Sharp a high five?
No, I was actually sitting with him.
Oh, nice. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the call, Ted.
Hell
We
yeah,
appreciate
Ted.
it. Maybe
Good for Ted.
Maybe I'll feel like Ted might have been at Baxter Arena last night.
Ted was somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey, go Mavs, man. Your Omaha Mavs are going to the NCAA tournament, and I am.
You don't even need to sweat on Sunday. You're going. You're just waiting to see where are we going.
I am happy that they were able to beat St. Thomas, get the opportunity to cut down those nets too, because you didn't like. Do you want to be the first team to ever go to the NCAA tournament? Absolutely. Do you know how much of a stretch that is when you get to UNO? Absolutely. But the fact that they earned it and there's never going to be that asterisk next to their name will live with this team forever.
That's a great point, because I don't know how much we would have been talking about that game, and
it would not have been a celebratory today if that was the case, even though that they were already in.
It kind of would have been, and I know that for that athletic department, don't get me wrong, that's such a massive accomplishment to even put yourself in the position to qualify for an NCAA tournament, and you're not going to apologize for anything if you were to lose that game yesterday, right? It definitely still does put a little sour taste in your mouth if you did lose that game and qualified because St. Thomas wasn't able to get to the NCAA tournament because of rules and regulations. The fact they won that game and the fact how they did it, man, they kept them at arm's length.
They dominated, yeah.
They dominated. It was, St. Thomas kept it it wasn't a blowout like it was against South Dakota, but like they played great basketball, and they're playing great basketball right now. They're clicking at the right time. I'm telling you, they're 15 and they get the right matchup in the first round.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm telling you right now, they got a shot.
Didn't you say Wisconsin could be a 2? Couldn't you see that?
No,
wouldn't that be
Wisconsin
funny?
After losing to Penn State, unless Wisconsin makes one hell of a run in the Big Ten tournament.
Is there a Big Ten school that will be a 2?
Michigan State.
Oh,
they're not beating Michigan State.
Yeah, that's not what I was
you
going
don't
for.
know. Crazier things have happened.
I think the best matchup they could draw from a stylistic standpoint is Texas Tech.
Okay.
And
they get down and dirty with them.
Still not great.
I think they've played them recently too, like maybe last year. I mean, I know it's a different team,
right.
but yeah.
I'm telling you right now. Yes, they're going to be massive underdogs. Yes, they probably are going to get blown out because that's just how those games go. At the same time, I believe. All right, I believe. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry, and I believe in Tony Osborne, and I believe in Markel Sutton and Cam Thomas, and Isaac Anaconda, and Josh Strait. I believe in the boys. All right.
Durango.
Hey, he was
now.
great last.
I'm telling you right now.
They had an 87-58 loss to Texas Tech last year, Jimmy.
So revenge.
Crazier things have happened. Crazier things have happened, guys. Okay. Lehigh beat Kansas.
I know.
Jimmy, do you remember?
Do you remember that?
I remember when Bucknell beat Kansas. That was right there in front of me.
Right there.
That was a fun locker room.
They're playing great basketball.
So can we wrap up the crying so we can go drink?
I'll tell you what. Omaha's going to be a 16 seed because they want to get the narrative of Omaha and Creighton being on the same seed line because the tournament cares about narratives, and that's just what's going to happen.
That big Omaha market.
You remember when
you got to get that Omaha
they put
market.
Nebraska on the same line as Texas A&M last year by all intents and purposes and intentionally done for it.
Omaha beats Duke. America wins.
Oh my God, that'd be incredible.
Yeah.
Markel Sutton versus Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
It'd be a National Player of the Year.
Sweep the
bout
leg.
is what that will be. No, it'll be great. Man, March is here. I know people think October is a better month, but man, we are chilling.
Second best sports month of the year.
We got golf. We have hockey. We have the NBA. We have March Madness. Things are turning up. I mean, it is going to be a great month, and we're happy that you are joining it with us, that you're listening to this show, that you're listening to 1620.
Good Monday.
Hope you didn't just
It's been a
tune in.
great Monday. It's been fun. It's been a fun month. It's been a fun
Thanks for the
season.
invite, man.
For some, this was a great show from Mr. Jimmy Allen.
It's me.
To Matt McMaster, from Jimmy Chavez,
That's him.
to Jake in the back being the parrot, studying up, getting ready to produce the show in the future. Want to thank you all for listening to this championship basketball, but also slightly gloomy Monday. Hey,
What?
well, like,
Where's this gloom?
I'm talking about Nebraska basketball, Jimmy. That was the gloom.
Oh, that was
51 degrees
yesterday.
outside at 9:54 a.m.
You're
You're gonna have a hell of a nap. You're
I'm
gonna
gonna
get
smoke a
outside.
cigar.
Yeah.
It's a cigar day.
You have a banger sweatshirt promoting the Owl Club at Temple
Yeah, we never
University.
found out
We
what
spent
the
almost an
Owl
hour
was.
looking it up, and we still don't know.
Apparently it does great things for Temple.
Better
Go
than the
Owls.
Burger King Kids Club. Jimmy, thank you for lunch.
Clue
Great to
Matt
see
coming
you.
back to the Chargers, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, that's one of the first pieces that fall into everything. All righty, thank you for listening today. We'll see you in 20 hours. You're listening to Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone.